Lunch.
You are looking live.
Live at lunch. Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
What the hell's going on out here?
Now, here's Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff.
Yeah, for some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Is it live? Is it live?
Well, it's been a bit of a long week here in South Louisiana. It's always tough when you circle something on the calendar all year long. This year it happened to be November 9th. Looking forward to Bama coming to town, and it's a little belt to behind type of game. So it's been a tough one here in the week, but I guarantee you in 3 to 4 months' time, when there's this sport that we all love is behind us, we'll be very much looking forward to a Football Friday presented by Tex Morris at Edward Jones Investments. Max Gocho here filling in for Charlie Hannegriff, who a little bit under the weather. We'll let him get ready for game day tomorrow. Joined as always by Richard Dixon, former LSU tight end. Rich, it's been a long week, but we've had some time to think over things. How are we feeling right now?
I'm over it at this point. Ready for Florida. Need to get the bad taste out your mouth. See these guys come back. I mean, look, it was the most frustrating game I've watched in a long time. It was tough to see. We talked before the game all week, last week, stopping the quarterback run, and just the things that you wanted to see executed. What wasn't executed? It was just a very poorly executed coaching plan. Execution by the players wasn't there. It was just a very frustrating game to watch because there's so much on the line. And, this is one of those times where we finally get to this 12-team playoff. There's still hope in the air with 2 losses. They got 2 losses. This isn't an Alabama team that has just gone out and whipped people. You've watched Vanderbilt stop them on the run. You've watched South Carolina stop them on the run. You've watched other teams comparable to what you think you can be stop this team. And then when it comes to us in a live, electric crowd, a big Saturday night in Death Valley, and we go out there and just give them nothing.
I know it. They say it doesn't rain in Tiger Stadium, but it poured.
It poured the whole time. I mean, emotionally, I think there was tears coming down. It was a very frustrating game to watch.
And look, I don't know about you, but I was at the game. Even at halftime, it kind of felt like they were still in it. You're down 2 possessions. You get the ball to start the second half, which is rare for LSU this season. And they had their chance, on that drive, and you ultimately throw a pick in the red zone. But it felt like they were still in it. And for whatever reason, in the first half, just being at the game, it seemed like the rain picked up a little bit when LSU was on offense. Now, that is a problem in and of itself, that you were so one-dimensional that the rain might be a problem.
Well, and that's, to me, what was frustrating is because you saw Caden Durham get out fast. He had 55 yards at one point. He was averaging over 5 yards a carry. And to me, I did not go back and rewatch this game like I normally do. I went and just picked out the plays that I wanted to talk about. And I was like, where did he disappear to? Because we weren't trying to get him the ball. He's a guy that has to get in a rhythm and keep giving the ball and forcing the ball. And there were early in this game, there were lanes. I mean, he broke a 40-yarder, 42-yarder, 45-yarder. Had a 9-yard carry, a 7-yard carry, and there was carries where he was gashing and getting holes, but we would just disappear from it.
Now, Brian Kelly spent the bye week talking about wanting balance in the offense, but unfortunately you get down kind of quickly, and then it became a little pass heavy.
How late in the game was it 21-6? I want to say somewhere in the third, maybe.
It was 21-6 going into the half.
Okay, into the half. There was times where he talks about that complimentary football. We go out and get a big 4th down stop, and the very next play, our center and guard, I don't know what the hell they were doing on that one, just blocking air. The guys come right up the middle. Nuss tries to wheel it out, but he doesn't take care of the ball. We lose a fumble first play. And then you get every time we got a little something going, we took 5 steps back on offense.
And you notice those things when you lose.
No.
If you remember the Ole Miss game, Ole Miss had a turnover on downs, I believe, and Nussmeier immediately throws it back to him. So you notice those things when you lose, and it just compounded. You mentioned coaching, personnel, decision-making, but you can assign blame everywhere on the defense.
The whole team gets blame on this one. This isn't just one person, offense, defense. I mean, the offense played just as bad as the defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, looking at the defense, though, to start, your last 6 quarters, you're giving up over 6 yards per rush. Of course, we talk about the quarterbacks, the mobile quarterbacks. In those 6 quarters, 11.8 yards per rush, for these quarterbacks. 247 yards total and 7 touchdowns in 6 quarters.
Just quarterbacks.
Just quarterbacks have 247 yards rushing. And they were 10 of 13 on third downs, Alabama. So you couldn't get off the field even when you had some of those third and medium, third and long in the first half. My question to you is, I came in, Blake Baker in his first year, he kind of came in with this mindset of havoc. He preached a lot of havoc at Missouri. He wants those negative plays, those pass breakups, sacks, tackles for loss. Is that part of the problem? Are they being a little too aggressive at times, trying to just make the big play, and they're just not letting things come to them a little bit?
Maybe it's part of the problem with inexperienced guys, because when you get I lied. I did go back and watch some of this game. But the plays I went back and watched, I watched all the big quarterback runs. And there was plays where guys just got in the wrong gaps. I think the very first touchdown that was 30-something yards, you have Swinson and 14 playing on the edge, both playing the outside. Swinson tries to make a move. He dips inside where he should have been. If he holds that gap, you got one gap block. You got the corner to take the edge. Then you have Gilbert and Weeks are supposed to fit up that next gap. The play should have been stopped for a short yard gain, but everybody's trying to do too much. No one's trusting each other. It's back to what we talked about earlier in the year where they got to play 1/11th of the defense. We were back to everybody trying to make a play. Swinson pops outside. So now you got 2 guys outside the tackle. Then you got Whit Weeks. He's got his head in the right gap, but when he sees the quarterback look the other way, he jumps back over and tries to get in that gap. And then you got 4 guys on one side of the ball, and he cuts back for a 30-something yard touchdown. The long one, the 70-something yard touchdown, it was a well-timed play into a defensive call. I mean, we blitzed into it, but still, when you go back and watch that one, on that particular play, we just got manhandled up front. We got Weeks was slammed down. You got our defensive tackles were pushed over. I mean, it looked like our line, our tackles at that point were on skates. They just got moved so easily, and it just washed the ball into an open hole.
And you mentioned, 14's Alexander at one point. To me, he's been the best defensive player. I know some people would say Whit Weeks or Swinson and whatnot, but even he didn't have a good game.
Oh, he got
dusted on Ryan Williams.
We got lucky. Ryan Williams doesn't drop that ball. Got 2 hands on it, and that could have. That game could have gotten out of hand even earlier.
Yeah, and that was rain inflicted as well. Yeah. So it's not just LSU.
That was the heaviest part of the
no, for sure.
On that play, it was the first time you could just see the rain coming down on TV.
One thing that's been mentioned this week, by some national talking heads, I wanted to get outside perspective of how things were going, and people are talking about how this defense has regressed. This is a longer term thing since the Arkansas game, but has it just been a regression, or is it as simple of matchups? Certainly, running quarterbacks has been a problem. Are you seeing something that's reversible with the mistakes they're making defensively?
I think that I wouldn't say the defense has regressed in particular, the last 2 games, 7 touchdowns by quarterbacks. I mean, that's a huge problem, and that's a frustrating deal because if you go back to when Wegman was in the game at A&M, that's the best our defense had looked. I mean, they were stopping the run, they were covering the pass well. I mean, Wegman's not an elite quarterback, but at the time people thought he was. He was the guy that we went out there and the defense was looking great. I just don't know where the adjustments are. I think our safety play is kind of not very well fitted for this QB run. I think our linebacker, what makes Whit Weeks so great is the gamble, but when it comes to the QB play, it's all about execution and playing your role. I mean, guys are just it covers up the problems when the quarterback's not running. Like Whit Weeks has a chance to gamble and outrun a slow quarterback or a back that's not as shifty. But when you get these quarterbacks in there and they make everybody hold you to gap integrity, there's no gambling at that point. And so I guess to your point about Blake Baker and them wanting to blitz and be aggressive, that works almost everywhere except for when you have an elite running quarterbacks.
And they haven't been successful with havoc either. I think they were top 5 after the Ole Miss game, or maybe after Arkansas. In the country, they're outside the top 25 now, so they're not even been successful there. You mentioned, the safeties kind of struggling over the last few weeks. Major Burns has been here a while. Sage Ryan's been here a while as well. Just one point of clarification. Yesterday on the coaches show, Brian Kelly mentioned that they had switched the green dot from the linebackers to Sage Ryan. And he said a couple weeks ago. So I think some people latched on to, did this happen 2 games ago when everything's gone awry? Went back and watched this morning. He had the green dot since the first bye week. He had it against the Ole Miss game.
Okay.
And, those safeties were excellent against Ole Miss and Arkansas. That was probably Major Burns' best game against Arkansas.
I think it makes makes sense in an Ole Miss game when you have those elite pass catchers and you got a quarterback that can sling it, and you're more worried about getting beat deep. But to me, in the NFL, it's always a linebacker. I feel like for the most part, it's a linebacker. It's the core of your defense. You talk about your middle linebacker as your quarterback. But look, they know how they're communicating at practice more than I do. I mean, so if that's where they felt the safest, that's fine. But I don't think the communication in the green dot and that's got nothing to do with run fits, pursuit angles. They just Sage Ryan there's a play we broke down on YouTube Monday where he runs a U at a guy. Yeah. I mean, he just doesn't. The fundamentals of pursuit angles. I mean, it's something every college football team does, every high school football team does, every middle school football team does. At some point in the day, your pursuit angles, and the angles we take just allow these big plays to look even worse.
The green dot being the in-helmet communication for one player on the field. So, you got to gather the troops, got to make things happen quickly. What are they fixing and improving coming into a Florida team that, look on the other side, they've got a running quarterback now. He's coming off a hamstring injury, but what can be fixed and improved immediately with this defense?
You just gap integrity.
Yeah.
Because, look, early on this year, we had similar issues where guys were trying to do too much. Guys were playing outside of what their role was to do. And I felt like we cleaned that up for a few games in the middle. I don't know if everybody got amped up in these games or one big play happens, all of a sudden you feel like I got to make every play. But they just got to settle it back in, make sure everybody's just doing their role and not trying to do too much.
So you're reteaching technique?
Not necessarily technique, just execution of the play. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be here when this happens. Don't go anywhere else.
Yeah. Okay, well, you've been in a few of these, losses afterwards, but, maybe nothing like this. What is the week of practice like when you come off of, such a destructive loss?
It's the one thing that, it's a cliche and, a lot of people don't get it. But when you're on that team, like, it hurts. These games, they say the 24-hour rule. These are more 48 hours. Yeah. This seeps into Monday because they watch that film Monday morning. I mean, they always tell you 24 hours. But we're watching game film Monday morning to see what went wrong. And then, that afternoon, you get it back out of practice. You're still you're pissed off. I mean, it's depressing. These guys, there's no bigger competitors than the guys on the football field. They want to win everything. They want to be excellent. So nobody, as mad as I get after the game, and I know that, those guys are mad. They're worse. They take it to heart. But by Tuesday, it's all about, look, let's go out there and put something on the film. And let's show them who we really are. It's just refocusing yourself, remotivating yourself, and knowing that you can be better than what you showed on film.
And when something's billed as an elimination game all week, and then you lose the way you do, how I don't know if you've seen some of the scenarios. Missouri loses twice, you get in. Are they telling the players any of that stuff just to keep their goals in front of them, or because you don't want to lose the team, but you also you got to work them.
It's mentioned. It's not a focus. I mean, they're really truly. This is one game at a time. You got to go out there and just worry about Florida. At this point, anybody can beat you. So let's go out there and focus on Florida. Let's focus on Vanderbilt. Let's focus on Oklahoma. And then if the chips all fall the right way, just know that if you take care of business this week, we'll talk about it next week because you don't know when those games are going to fall. You don't want to build that up and then something happen on the first weekend that throws that scenario out the window.
While we're on the defense, looking ahead to this week, a quarterback, mobile, but coming off a hamstring injury, does that change the coach's preparation knowing that maybe it is a re-injury?
It better not. I mean, they need to treat him like he's 100% healthy and just, focus on go watch the last 6 quarters of football and fix that.
We're here at Ruffino's for Football Friday, presented by Tex Morris at Edward Jones Investments. Jimmy Ott will be with us in just a few moments, but this is looking ahead at this point, and we'll look to the offense on the other side. Come back with us. Come see us here for Ruffino's. Lunch opens at 11 o'clock. This is Live at Lunch, Football Sunday, presented by Tex Morris at Edward Jones Investments. I want to watch you.
It's Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris of Edward Jones Investments. Now, back to Live at Lunch from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Football Friday, presented by Tex Morris at Edward Jones Investments here from Rufino's. Max Gotro filling in for Charles Hannegriff, who has the day off. Jimmy Ott will join us, I believe, coming up in the next segment, so stick around for that. Shifting over to the offensive side of the ball, obviously it was not a great game for Nussmeier and his draft stock. A couple interceptions on the game. It's been a bit of a problem where maybe he's not seeing the defense wholly. You sort of mentioned the lack of balance with the running game. What were your biggest takeaways offensively? What went wrong?
There was some bad blocking up front. We got a new guard in there that's struggling a little bit to get on his cutoffs. DJ Chester, he's just struggled to really get to the next level. And when you're talking about your run game, a lot of our stuff is stretch. We're doing a lot of zone plays, outside zone plays, and we're getting usually beat and eat up by the defensive tackles and linebackers coming up the middle, which is just you're not getting those cutoff blocks. The blocking in the run game, like we've all talked about, it has just been D-. There's nothing really good about it, and that's all five of them have had their issues. Will Campbell's, of course, probably the best one, but he struggled at times. And I think it's to the point to where, Nussmeier just has putting so much pressure on himself to make every play, and he's gotten away from his fundamentals, things that, maybe that he did well in the first 5-6 games. It's things that he's starting to press a little bit, and, he's just starting to make bad decisions, and he's got to get out of that. I understand that, we're always taught that, every possession is in a kick, whether it's, punt, field goal, whatever it is. Every possession is in a kick. And he's just making some really bad decisions. The coverage, I think the last 2 weeks, the defensive coordinator have done well finding the coverages he struggles with. A lot of looks like man, but they drop into zone. They're matching, carrying, and then falling off at the last second. The interception in the end zone, he had to read that they were manned up across, and he had two guys were bracketing. But so he thought 100% man. When that linebacker went with him, he didn't realize the safety already had him man. All he did was carry him, and he slid off and dropped in the zone. So it's just things that he's got to be better at. But look, you got to help him out somewhere too. You got to get the ball moving in the run game some way, or just change up. You got to give him some easier throws.
And Nussmeier, he's been here a while, but it is his first year starting. It's also the first year for Joe Sloan at offensive coordinator. And we saw Mike Denbrock, in my opinion, very much struggle in his first year. Made strides. Next thing you know, Jaden Daniels is winning the Heisman. So what is Joe Sloan not doing? Because
he gets away from the run game too fast. There's the Alabama game to me, even though that we would have a couple good runs and a couple bad ones, but he just abandoned it immediately. And I don't care. You can talk about we're getting down, you got to throw the ball. Well, when we've seen what happens when Nuss has to throw the ball every time. He has 6 turnovers in the last 2 games, and you can't do that against the A&Ms and Alabamas. Those are drive killers, momentum killers. You're just putting yourself in a bad situation. I would rather you run it 3 times, just trying to bust something, give them different looks, and punt it, than just go back out trying to air it out down deep when you're not really getting a lot of guys open.
It's interesting. This is a team that you would think, based on their build, would be a good team, ahead, not so much behind. But they passed and come back in a couple of games against Ole Miss and South Carolina.
Yeah, at times they've really dialed it up. And when that offensive line, look, we talked about. I don't know what the numbers are now, but we were so far in the season only giving up 2 sacks, and both came against South Carolina, and he had a lot of time. I think since A&M, and he's gone against some really quality defensive coordinators, starting with Elko's game plan. They've done things that are really causing him trouble, and they're starting to figure out what causes him problems, and it's just making everything that much harder when he's still trying to throw the ball 50 times a game.
DeBoer mentioned after the game they could kind of sense where the ball is going to go against LSU. Now, they made some adjustments mid-game against LSU
the very
as well.
first, in the first or second drive, they made adjustments. Their in-game adjustments really well. The long run that we busted for 45. They came back the next time. We ran that exact same play. They kept the safety in the box. They had motioned him out to the side at one point, and that's where the big gap seam came. The very next play, when we got into that formation, they knew what the play was. They dropped the safety down in the box, and they stopped it for a 7-yard run instead of a big bust.
Yeah, that was under the pistol, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I'm glad they went to, because we're a terrible zone read team. I mean, Nuss isn't going to pull it, so you're cutting off half the field unless you put in some type of counter, which is just awkward at that point. You still don't have enough time to get guys moving around. But when you get in the pistol, it at least eliminates, predictable run game. It eliminates where they can think you're going.
So if they think they know where LSU's going in the running game, but it's also the passing game a little bit as well. Is that more on Nuss, or is that a Joe Sloan thing as well?
Joe Sloan's got to mix it up a little bit because he's putting them in the same similar formations. Like they wouldn't do their scouting. They know that when we get in these looks, this is typically where he's going. But Nussmeier's also still trying to push the ball down the field. There's a lot of plays, earlier he could have hit the check down. He's kind of gotten away from Mason Taylor, which surprised me because there's a lot of different times on particularly the interception he threw. Mason was getting open across the middle. There's other things he could do to get him the ball. But I don't know. It's like he's gotten away from what made him great with the early check downs to the running back and hitting Mason Taylor, for the 5 to 7 yard game.
It's definitely interesting Taylor's not more involved when you consider it seems like a lot of his success has come in the middle of the field, which is why I think NFL scouts are looking very highly on Nussmeier. He does a lot of stuff in between the numbers on crossing routes, slants, and things like that.
He's a guy that fits zones really well and understands creating space, and he makes a tough catch. Every time you throw it in there, he can have a guy hanging on his shoulders, and he still makes a play. He's a guy that I really think once things start getting you struggle downfield, you got to give him the ball more and give him more opportunities. It's just like busting a good run play.
So they get a matchup this week against Florida, a secondary that's extremely banged up. They've struggled against the pass for much of the year, but especially lately. Jason Marshall Jr. and Devin Moore, a couple of their key defensive backs listed as out for this game. But their pass rush is half decent, so you have a vulnerable secondary. Is that an opportunity for Nussmeier to bounce back a little bit this week?
Every week's different. Alabama had a not so good run defense, and they ended up stopping us. I mean, we can look at what they do week to week. I think this team, the one thing is they're getting better. Florida's had to deal with a lot of injuries. They've been banged up. But, I watched some of the Georgia game, and they were in that game for a little while. I haven't watched too many of the games, but I felt like in the last few weeks this team is getting better. And, look, does it give you a little bit of hope that they're struggling and they got injuries in the secondary? But to me, it all starts with the run game. You've got to get back into some sort of a run game because it does not matter at this point. If you cannot run the ball, eventually they're going to start dropping and mixing coverages, and we've seen them struggle.
Overcoming a tough schedule and a lot of injuries, and they still have a lot of fight in them.
Yeah.
They're not going to quit. Even against Texas, they were fighting.
It's a very commendable thing that they've kept that team together this long.
We're here at Ruffino's Football Friday, presented by Tex Morris at Edward Jones Investments. Jimmy Ott is with us. He'll join us on the other side. This is Football Friday on 104.
It's Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris of Edward Jones Investments. Now, back to Live at Lunch from Ruffino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Lock of the week, lock of the week, lock of the week, lock of the week. Charlie's sick. Lock of the week Friday, presented by Tex Morris and Edward Jones Investments. You know, he was not feeling well when we're sitting out on the patio yesterday in this beautiful weather over at Los Reyes. He said, "I'm not ordering today." I'm like, bro, whoa. You better go get to the doctor. So it took a turn for the took a little turn south, taking a day off. Hopefully he'll be back for his pre and post game responsibilities. We will see. And then of course Football Sunday and Live at Lunch again back on the Mississippi Gulf Coast at the Beau Rivage at Biloxi. My man Richard Dixon.
Great coast.
How you been, man?
Doing good, man. I just try to erase my brain for a little bit, get focused and going forward.
Well, I mean, it's a very similar tone on Sunday's show with Roe.
Yeah.
Ex-players and just kind of a little pride, man. I mean, it's
we care so much about these guys, and it's something that doesn't go away. I tell people I was an angry football player when I played. I had no problem at halftime cussing people out. Just going crazy, and not say in a detrimental way, but I got guys refocused, and I can remember as much as a sophomore, I'm very passionate about it. I thought one day this would go away. I thought once I started watching the games on TV that feeling would go away, and it doesn't. I hadn't played in 14 years, and I'm still getting just as upset like I feel like I was in the locker room.
I got to tell you, Richard, it's the games and Look, I like watching all the games. I love it. Look, LSU's my alma mater. My dad's on the first national championship team, but I remember leaving that stadium in 1979, USC, like, damn, man, it was so close. But this one got to me too.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, wait, what? Because I don't know if we're just selling so many people how the atmosphere, man, it checks the boxes, man, and the place was ready to blow the lid off, man. I mean, people, the rain was just, it was like the old school LSU fan base, man. Nobody's leaving because it's raining. No, we're here, man. Now, once it got into the third quarter and things like that, but I just don't. And it's not anything. I can't kill Kelly on the lack of emotion and intensity because, man, who needs a Hall of Fame locker room speech to get you ready for Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, that's nothing. I mean, the players are zoned in regardless, or the way they feel. I just think it's gotten to the point where, it really shocked me to see how out-physical we got on the lines of scrimmage. I mean, these guys were just thrown away. And, when me and Charlie went back and watched the film, there's a few plays where I'm watching our linemen just get shoved out the way like toys. I mean, not even getting any type of stop. These guys getting moved. And that's not when I think LSU, Alabama, I think of the most physical game about to happen, just a brutal game. And it was physical one-sided this time.
So you and Charlie go and break down the tape on the podcast and things like that. So, I mean, pretty much it's got to be across the board. Poor scheming, poor on the bench certainly. I mean, how many times are you going to see a running quarterback? I mean, how can we not have more numbers there? But you also saw poor execution. You saw guys running themselves out of plays a lot, especially in the back end where, damn it, safety. The term safety, you're the last line of defense. You cannot just run wild and just sell out, in the first snap and giving up Milroe the cutbacks. And but how much percentage of the breakdown was intensity, just getting whooped, a poor execution, poor planning?
I think it's 50-50. I mean, there were times on the big long run, I think the 70-something yarder that we talked about earlier, that was strictly bad timing on a blitz. We called a blitz straight into it. But even though it's a bad call, it was bad execution. If they execute the blitz, there's still opportunities to make that a 7-yard gain or a 10-yard gain and not a 72-yard touchdown. There was other plays where you're watching the D tackles just get washed out the way. I mean, the whole line is washed over to where he's got a gap a truck could drive through. And then you have, another long run where it's guys trying to do too much. You end up having, Swinson and the 14. They both hop on the outside, get in the same gap. Then you get Weeks is trying to make a play. He hops over, and him and the safety end up in the same gap. So you got 4 guys on the right side of the ball, and it creates that big gap. And it's like I said, it's a mixture of them not executing. Well, it's like earlier in the season. What you talked about at USC. They got to play 1/11th of the defense. Everybody's got to do their job. And I felt like we started doing that in the middle games. But it's back to these big moments. We feel like we have to make a play, and they throw that out the window and start trying to do too much again.
So it was just amazing that the 2 big games in Tiger Stadium were such different levels. I mean, I still think Ole Miss is better than Alabama.
Yeah.
And, man, LSU had to play so hard, had to play so well. I mean, to hang in there, get a break here or there, with a drop pass or and how they can just, night and day. And I mean, how does that happen?
Look, LSU was just very fortunate to win that game at Ole Miss. I mean,
right, but the effort. I mean, they had guys. They had like 4 guys that had the game career games.
Yeah, I mean,
Weeks the cornerback. Tackles,
to me, this one is like it happened to them so fast, and I think it took their spirit out. I felt like they played the whole game, but when it happens that fast, and it just happened to you 2 weeks ago, it was like just ripping your heart out right there. You're like, God dang it, what do we do? We practiced for 2 weeks for this, and it's happening to us again, and the mentality gets just broken down a lot quicker.
Did you see enough numbers in the box to try and stop Milroe on the run?
I think there was, but like I said, when you have guys fitting the wrong gaps, going to the wrong side of the ball, you have guys taking bad angles. I mean, Sage Ryan runs a U when he's trying to get him. the play that just really ticked me off is what he said, safety. And he comes running full stream down straight at a guy and then turns around and just chases his tail the whole time. Like, you got to understand.
It's an unbelievable angle, huh?
It's terrible
This is a guy's been playing ball a long time. I mean, he was playing 8th grade for Lafayette Christian.
Yeah, and you got
at a high school level.
That's kind of the point I made earlier is you start doing pursuit angles in 6th grade football, 7th grade. You're probably doing it younger than that, but this is something you've done your whole life of playing this game, and you've seen this tape. And to take those angles and look, is it a 20-yard play? Okay, that's one thing. But busting them for 70, 40, because you take bad angles. And then there's the play that everybody's seen that was just a terrible look is when Gilbert's got him wrapped up and Burns is coming up to hit him and just stops. He breaks out the tackle and goes for another touchdown. I mean, there's things that these guys have just got to finish. It's not a killer instinct.
So how good is LSU's personnel?
Not very good. Look, we've seen them put a few good things together, but there's 3 or 4 guys that, are, in my opinion, are probably NFL players on that team right now, and they're not early round guys.
Right. And we talked about this a lot, though. But it seems like Brian Kelly. No, it doesn't seem like. I mean, he showed you his. He admitted his mistake by hiring guys that he passed up on originally, and he thought that school recruited itself. It was easier to he's not an enthusiastic recruiter. He's not great at it. He's got to have that staff. He sees it from South Bend. He said, "Man, I'd go there. They get those players. Well, they don't just come here by themselves."
No, I mean,
and so he's kind of. I'm worried about him that he took it, and I think it's headed in the right direction. Now Michigan's making a big late push on Underwood.
$10.5 million.
Yeah, I mean that's significantly more than what LSU.
Dick Dixon would be telling me where to go if it was $10.5 million. Like, I don't give a damn what you like.
I mean, that's so we'll see, but it's this class is better.
I think it's going in the right direction, like you said. It's frustrating because
you're 2 years behind, man.
We're year 3 and we're starting over at year 1.
Well, guess what? The two biggest programs on the campus, the ones that generate the most revenue for your athletic department, is football and basketball, men's basketball. And it's real simple. These were kind of on-the-job training hires.
Yeah.
And not that it got two different things. McMahon, I'm still shocked that he got the number 6 class in the country. Right now, yeah, number 6. Monkey's got number 1. The baseball's got number 1. Yeah, well, that's expected. Not every year, but I mean that. Okay, next, but him. Well, he had never recruited at a Power 5 or Power 4 level before. Is he figuring some things out? Yeah. Sure, looks like it. They had a great win last night, by the way. I know, Max. We
got to talk about that later. McManiacs, they're ahead of schedule.
I mean, that's a.
How good's Kansas
You look
State?
like.
You hear Kansas State.
They're picked to finish 8th out of a 16-team Big 12. Their net, it is so early, was 70.
Yeah.
They were an NIT team last year. They were Elite 8 team the year before. The little guard was so good. But to beat them the way they did, I mean, that thing was double digits the whole way.
Yeah.
I don't think at one point in the second half it got to single digits, right, Max?
It might have gotten to like 9.
But I mean, he comes in and everybody's like, "Oh, he had nobody in his roster." Man, that's common today. Nobody has anybody in their roster.
In basketball,
so he did kind of turn his nose up to some guys that wanted to try and help out, that did help out Wade and whatever. But on the job, he might be figuring it out now.
Yeah.
Kelly. Well, look at this class. And that's the thing. This roster, I mean, any of Kelly's rosters. I mean, Jaden Daniels was so damn good last year, and he was pretty good the first year. But Miles never had teams this week. This roster, not even close, man. This is not Saban. That's Miles. I mean, he couldn't recruit, but I don't know. It's a different era, but damn, figure it out. You're getting paid for it.
I talked to a lot of people, and you go back to 2007, and I'm not just trying to talk about championship years, but that offensive line we had, no one was saying we had the best offensive line in the country. We had one offensive lineman out of the starting 5 drafted, and he was Herman Johnson, went in the 3rd round, 4th round. Everybody else undrafted. And we rushed for 200-something yards a game. I mean, we murdered people up front. Now we can talk about pass protection. It's a whole other thing. But, I mean, then I hear this team. We got 2 first-round tackles. We got blah, blah, blah. Guys been starting here. And we look like we can't do anything. I mean, the frustrating thing when you go back to the Alabama game, I'm sorry we keep going back to the Alabama game, but nothing pissed me off more than trying to score with 17 seconds left. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. When Alabama throws in all their backups, there's not a starter left on the field. We got all of our starters, and our offensive line's getting their butt whipped in. I mean, they're still getting pushed around at that point. I mean, it's 17 seconds left in the game. The game is over. They've pulled every coach out of the box. They're sitting on the sideline.
That's what Akron does against Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean that's my point exactly.
Yeah.
That pissed me off because look, everybody knew what type of ass whooping we just took. Run the ball, go put somebody backups in, and we could have been out of there 15 minutes earlier. But we're going to keep our starters in and try to score, and we're down 40 something to 6. That's such Bush League.
It you know what it reminded me of when he talks about this 10-win season.
That's it,
man.
10-win season don't mean crap anymore when you got 12.
I mean, when Purdue brings Drew Brees and his flag football team to play you. I mean, really, you're going to beat your chest about beating that team, the Wisconsin team, and I had to come back and late for that. Man, that doesn't. Man, I understand you have to try and reset your goals.
Yeah.
But I mean, how about number one, playing with a little pride?
Yeah.
How about number two? A lot of these guys think they got a shot making the money playing football, right?
Go put the best film forward.
Yeah. I mean, they want to see when. Okay, don't show me the highlight reel. Just show me every play once your team got knocked out of it.
Show me how he plays
mathematically
with nothing to play
alive.
for.
What's that?
Show me how to play when he's got nothing to play for. Show me how to finish the season.
Yeah,
because a lot of these NFL teams, you get bad NFL teams are out of the playoffs halfway through, and those guys are talking about playing for the tape.
I learned that before Rivals was around. I used to do a Sunday night TV show, and I did my own top 30 in-state rankings in recruiting. And I learned real quick when coaches would send me highlight films, or I would do the editing myself.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some guys can look great, but are they playing every down?
There's a lot of guys that quit too.
Yeah.
You got to find that out, and this is something you never want to put on film.
It's just. Can you maintain that pride level in this NIL era or this pay-for-play era?
I don't know. The one thing I will say is I don't see these guys quitting. And I said Kelly has kept these guys together pretty well. I don't see on the sideline, like I've seen in the past guys pointing fingers, throwing hands up, especially the last 2 years with Orgeron. Those guys were just miserable on the field, guys getting mad, fighting, quitting. Right. These guys don't seem to quit. And, it's tough when you watch a game like that. Like, you see it's easy to quit late in that game. But defensively, I still think they fly around and trying to do as much as they can.
Real quick, what did you discover on film with Nussmeier? What's going on?
I just think that he's pressing at this point. They're not, they're getting away from the run game. They're not even trying to run the game. And I think you still have to throw some in there because I saw a stat the other day that Durham's averaging almost 6 yards a carry, but he's only getting the ball 8 times a game. I mean, we got to start feeding him a lot more. And I hear his point about Josh Williams and pass blocking, but I've seen Josh Williams make a lot of mistakes in pass blocking too. At this point, give me the athlete, give me the guy that can go out there and make it, and I'll gamble with that. Give me a hot route to throw off a blitzer.
Are they tipping off their plays with their personnel?
It sounds like it. And when you hear the
if you tell me Josh Williams is in there,
they're trying to bring him in there and pressure looks when they need an extra blocker. They're trying to chip a lot on the outside. I think where they need to have help, and I don't know why Josh Williams is always looking to the outside helping the DN, because all the help we need right now is between the garden center.
We'll take a time out. We'll wrap up hour number one. Dixon's going to shoot some squirrels this weekend, so he'll knock some steam off.
Oh, yeah, got to.
the family did some guy time. Good. The weather's unbelievable, man.
Beautiful.
Get out and about. I might have to go eat in Mahoney's courtyard this weekend.
That'd be nice.
Huh? My Uncle Bobby.
Tell Bobby I said what's up.
No, man. You're first ballot Hall of Fame patron over at Mary Mahoney's.
He hooked me up. Got married at Mary Mahoney's.
Yes,
that's my spot.
Dougie Thompson on the Busboy Hall of Fame as well. So I love my boy Bobby. We have a lot of time sweating in my horses in football. We'll take a time out. Lock of the week Friday, presented by Tex Morris and Edward Jones Investments here from Rufino's on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It's Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris of Edward Jones Investments. Now, back to Live at Lunch from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
It is still LSU, Florida. That was pretty big stakes when you were playing, huh?
That was the game.
That was the game. Whoever won that game was. I still think that 2006. I mean, that was Jamarcus' worst game and a very good season for him. And I mean, Florida wins it all. I thought we were better than them that year.
Yeah, I mean that
we gave them that game.
That game, that year, you go back to the Auburn game, the one of the
Auburn game. I think that there was a big tug of war going on between the offense coordinator and head coach. You know?
I mean those were some big games. But yeah, back when I played, Florida was the game. I mean, they won 2 national championships in the 4 years I was there.
Here's the thing about Kelly. One thing that he does have in his favor, and listen. Fan unrest or criticism and being on a hot seat are completely different things.
Yeah.
I did with Jacques Doucet and Rabelais, and it was talking about some guys walking around with a fire. I mean, easy.
Back off
Okay, there are 4 major hires made that year. Lincoln Riley went to USC. Kelly doing better than him.
Yep.
Billy Napier at Florida.
Yep.
Brent Venables at Oklahoma.
I'd say he's winning.
Those, I mean, so he is. Hey, if you're upset, go to the. Hey, they try at those schools too.
If you're upset, go to his show last night. I heard he bought everybody around that attended.
He did, you know, and he's acted. He came over with the reputation of a prickly pear, and he's been very respectful, very cordial to the media, cooperative. Accessible, whether he takes calls in his coach's show, come see, come saw. But he's been fine. I just want him to work.
Yeah.
I want to see him on the sideline of a high school game once or twice. Yeah. You know, I mean, when my son's playing against Arch Manning a couple of years ago, I mean, Lane Kiffin was on the sideline on a Friday night. He's got a game the next day in Oxford.
Yeah.
I mean, just show me. I mean, dude, it's work. Don't come in here and cash your last check.
Yeah,
that's my biggest. Work. We know you're good.
We talked about that, and like I know that these coaches, they're all ego driven. Like he is just as embarrassed as I feel like I was. When he goes back and watches it, he knows what the whole world just saw him do. I mean, he had 2 weeks to prepare for that, and that's the best he could do. I know that embarrassed him. I know that's something frustrating to him, too. But to your point, you start working the streets. At least the Baton Rouge schools, all the other schools, we got a lot of time in this town. You should be at these games on Friday night, showing your face and being the guy that everybody wants to see when Brian Kelly walks onto that dang field. I remember as a kid when the coach, you'd see that coach come walking in. It made an impression to you.
Yes.
It stuck out when you knew that those guys were coming to see you play on a Friday night.
Everybody knew Lane Kiffin was at that game I just referenced. Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah, it was a big deal. And, I mean, get out in a guy that just passed, and Charlie Baglio, I mean, he was a guy. Why? Because he could get along with anybody. The Tangipahoa Parish, but also the North Louisiana. Yeah. Even though he was one of his rivals back-to-back state championship games against Evangel, the Catholic League would make Frank Wilson so good. Well, he went to Carr, coached at Oak Perry Walker in Orleans Parish Public Schools, but he graduated from St. Aug in a Catholic League.
Yeah.
So he was on both of them. What do you think about Florida? Lagway's going to play coming back real quick.
I think Florida's a get-back game. We got to go out there. This is a team that's playing better. Lagway is another guy that could potentially run. I know he's got a hamstring deal, but they just got to go out there and get focused and execute and play their jobs.
All right, man. Go get some squirrels this weekend.
Yes, sir.
We'll talk about that LSU win against Kansas State in just a second. It's Lock of the Week Friday here from Rufino's at 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It's Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris of Edward Jones Investments. Now, back to Live at Lunch from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, Lock of the Week Friday, Lock of the Week Friday. Jimmy out in Mexico. Charlie has a day off. He's under the weather. Hopefully he'll be back for pre- and post-game tomorrow. We do have his picks later today. Over here at Rufino's, our appetizer features today, the Angry Shrimp. Crispy fried Gulf shrimp with a sweet and spicy chili glaze, the Wagyu short ribs, braised Wagyu short rib, the parsnip puree, beef jus pickled shallots. Entree features the fish Oscar, fresh grilled grouper, jumbo lump crab meat, béarnaise sauce with asparagus on the side. Suggested wine pairing. It's a Frank Family Chardonnay out of Napa. New Orleans ribeye is our steak special this weekend. 16-ounce ribeye, New Orleans-style barbecue shrimp with mashed potatoes. Suggested wine pairing is a Turnbull Cabernet Sauvignon, which from Napa as well. Dessert feature. Man, Patrick's been whipping out some great desserts lately. Coffee and molasses cheesecake. Mascarpone cheesecake, coffee and molasses swirl, graham cracker, and pecan crust. So, beverage features, we're getting to about that time of the year. The Yule fashion, the avocado cocktail, and then the Ruffino's Old Elk. That's right. Our exclusive hand-picked single-barrel select bourbon is available over here as well. Max, you're the basketball guy here. You've had St. Crew. I'm ready to get back on the bandwagon. We're on our way to March Madness. Huh? That's what's happening here?
I mean, it's a good start. 76-65 win in the Little Apple. I mean, that's not the easiest place to play.
8.5-point dog, wire-to-wire, double-digit win.
Yeah, and it had to feel good for Matt McMahon because there was quite a bit of similarities among these teams. You have Cam Carter, who played at Kansas State, returns. Coleman Hawkins, who LSU heavily recruited out of Illinois in the portal this year. He's at Kansas State now. He had 8 points, kind of struggled.
He had a big guy. Yeah, he got a little dirty late.
Got into it with Cam Carter after the game as well a little bit. Carter kind of saying some stuff, but and he gets back at his first year. They played Kansas State in a neutral venue and had it kind of stolen from him with a late call there. So it's a great feeling for McMahon, and this was a complete effort, especially defensively, where they just really stifled Kansas State. They didn't get a whole lot of good looks, and yeah, I mean, hard not to feel good about the McManiacs right now.
I'm trying to see what they got NET update. You seeing any of that?
I haven't checked that. I will say KenPom, they're up to 37th this morning.
Okay,
so that's
really?
Pretty significant, improve from where they've been the last couple of years.
You're in the 30s in KenPom. You're in that large team. Very early.
Very.
Don't get me wrong, okay? But this team looks like they are better than last year, would you say?
Oh, 100%. They
what was their record in the league last year?
9-9.
Okay, 9-10 with it. Okay,
yeah.
So they went 9-10 in SEC play last year. Now, how's the schedule compared to last year? Because when you're talking about a 16-team conference, I mean, you're gonna have a lot of variance in these schedules.
Yeah, and
when we talk about in football, I mean, we've seen that.
You add Texas, Oklahoma, that probably improves the conference as a whole. In basketball, especially Texas, you bring them in. They've got a couple non-con games. This was certainly one of them they had circled as an opportunity to improve their non-con schedule from last year, which was a little bit top-heavy, and after that, it fell off.
This is their toughest non-conference game. If they can run the table in non-conference, you go 500. You could get strong consideration for a bid. I can't believe I'm saying this today, but no, that's. I mean, why would 500 in the league be unrealistic if you did it last year?
No, it's not, and they overachieved, I think, with that unit last year. But next Friday they've got Pitt. We'll see if they can follow that up as well. Pitt's not quite what Kansas State is. It's a neutral site game.
Pitt's figured to Pitt's that's an 18-team league. They're picked to finish like sixth.
They've been a bubble team traditionally, as of late.
Okay, listen, it's college basketball. You don't know it's year to year,
right?
Okay, but I mean, I'm just going by what their LSU appears to be stronger than a 14th place finish in the SEC.
No doubt, and they overachieved in the conference last year, but this year they have true ball handlers, which they didn't really have last year. That's the biggest improve you've seen. Yeah, they're defensively sound. They've worked on fundamentals a lot, clearly. They stay in front of everyone, and they make you make a tough shot, and then they get back in transition on misses. We saw that a few times in the first half. Kansas State would miss a long three, and LSU was just racing to the other side. Kansas State wasn't ready for it. So, Cam Carter, was a big game for him, 20 points in his return to Manhattan. But it was a complete effort all around, and you shoot 50% from the floor, you're going to have some success, but it was what they did defensively that I think was most impressive.
It is, and man, that's hey, you got to give credit where credit's due. So it's funny how these two hires in basketball and football are kind of run the same path. A little on-the-job training for a couple of years, and now we got to figure it out. Ryan Kelly should have it figured out a little bit more than Matt McMahon. Okay, but anyway. Last night, Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders took a halftime lead, and but wore down. And the biggest thing here was Philadelphia taking away option A, and that is they bracketed McLaren for most of the game, only 2 targets. That tells you right there that they're giving him extra attention. And when you can put pressure on with just rushing 4, you can do things like that. It's a very complicated path to get to a very simple result. It's a numbers game. When you can use less, you got more in coverage. It's what it was. Daniels, a rookie, is he hitting a little bit of a rookie wall? Maybe. I think it is more of that to contain rush and some of the things that they're doing. Pittsburgh has offered a blueprint. This is the back-to-back weeks now, lowest yardage output for the Washington offense. He's still going to be good, but the thing is, there is a similarity between with this situation with Daniels at Washington and Joe Burrow at Cincinnati. There is a similarity between Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, the number 1 pick at Chicago. And that is they have to draft a left tackle. And it's been a patchwork, kind of secondary, half-ass approach by Cincinnati to try and get him protection. And some guys, they gave certain guys, highly drafted guys, way too much time there. And then they tried to pick up some guys that, are teases, that are very talented, but they've underperformed in their past, and they're doing the same thing with the inconsistency at Cincinnati. They need help, and that was Philadelphia had their way up front with the defensive line against Washington's protection. Robinson was back last night, Eckler, but a lot of checkdowns for Daniels, and he wants to throw the ball downfield. He wants to throw the ball to McLaren. So a little bit of an adjustment period here for the Washington Commanders.
Look, Philly's got a good pass defense, but when you hold McLaurin to 2 targets, 1 catch for 10 yards, like that's pretty good. And clearly when you don't get the defense on its back foot, when you're running the ball with both running backs and the quarterback, it makes things a lot harder, and Daniels definitely struggled a little bit.
Man, you get pressured, man. I mean, he's going to be fine. He is going to be fine. I don't think it's hitting this wicker wall. I think that they've gone against 2 pretty good pass rushing teams, and that were able to generate a pass rush without. Keep in mind, it's Pittsburgh. It was 3rd and 9 with just minutes to go when Wilson picked up the blitz and threw the pass to Williams for the winning touchdown. It was, if it's called a first down on the 4th and 10 to the pass to Ertz, that they're going to have a field goal to win that game last week. So, yeah, they got lucky against Chicago, but Washington's going to be – they're still way ahead of schedule. They should be a playoff team. I don't see how they're going to keep them out. It's just – this is still on the right path. This is their Independence Bowl for Jared DiNardo's first year. They're going to get to the playoffs, but you don't really think they're much of a threat because – this is still and then they wore down. Their defense was playing very well. Yes, they benefited from a couple of missed field goals in the first half, but the defense was really, and they just got tired. And Barkley just ran them. It's interesting, though, with all of the weapons that the Eagles have, that they're so one-dimensional and they're so reliant on Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, a little surprised by that, certainly. The return of A.J. Brown was certainly helpful for them. They struggled offensively without him.
Guys, man. They got guys, and it's just – and what's name was terrible in the first half. Hurts. He was missing guys, left and right. but I thought the Washington. So Washington's going to be okay, but this is a spot where the Eagles, they've been in these games more. They've been. What about the decision to not kick the field goal down 2 in the fourth quarter?
I admittedly was a little bit more tuned into LSU basketball at that moment.
Well, here's the deal. It was 2nd and a half a yard. You lost. You had an incompletion, I think, on second down, and you lost a half. You went backwards on second and third down. What made you think, and I think this is something that maybe the robot or the analytics, whatever, but when you need a half a yard and you go backwards on 2 plays, what makes you have confidence that you're going to be able to do that? You're not running the ball because you're scared to, because they've shown that they're beating you up front. So the one thing I will back on why he went for it. Well, they showed that 3 points was not going to win the game.
Right.
So that I can have defense. But, to take a lead in the fourth quarter, there's not a guarantee that the kicker's going to make it, but he was fine there as well.
I will say there's one weakness, really, for the Commanders this year, and it's something that Cliff Kingsbury had a problem with in Arizona. Considering how much of an offensive playmaker he is, they struggle in the red zone. And we've seen this with the Commanders team. They kick a lot of field goals. They get between the 20s very, very well, but sometimes they get caught up, and so maybe
that was one of my favorite props last night. Was under 2.5 Washington touchdowns.
Yeah,
because of that.
They don't score when they get
there. They should because Robinson is really good. He really he runs behind his pads, But it's and then when Daniels is the guy that he's going to read the defense. He does process well. He doesn't hold the ball. So like you see these ridiculous. Sack rate, with Caleb Williams right now. He's better than Caleb Williams. He's going to be better than Caleb Williams. But they need a left tackle. Protect that guy, man. Go out and identify the best one when it's available when you draft. And, let's face it. Protect him. So we will see. Don't forget our friends at Legacy Title, Chad Reynolds and Legacy Title for all of you real estate closings, 296-0060. Full-service title company servicing all of South Louisiana. Fast, friendly, professional service is what you get when you dial 296-0060. Great team at Legacy Title. Ashley Donald, Mariana Haynes, Adrian Galata, Michael Platt. Buying, building, refinancing. Nobody chooses but you. Choose Chad Reynolds and Legacy Title. Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris and Edward Jones Investments. Chris Massaro from San Diego and his top 5 picks when we return on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It's Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris of Edward Jones Investments. Now, back to Live at Lunch from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Let's go out to PB, baby. San Diego, Pacific Beach. Oh, where he told us on that crazy-ass beach bar you took us to. Man, that was some characters there. Had Washington, Philly Exacta. Looked pretty good. Chris, how you doing, buddy? What'd you think of last night's game?
Just a frustrating game. I do have that exacta, but I'm stronger on Washington. I have them at 15-1 to win the NFC East. And when you get out to that lead and have an opportunity to maybe take the lead in the fourth, I know, probably analytics says go for it. But like you were saying before the break, you go backwards 2 plays in a row, and then you kind of have a bobbled snap. It's just a frustrating game, and then the defense just kind of just rolled over at the end. So. Just frustrating. I still think the Washington football team can come back and win the division. If you do look at the schedule, Philly has some tough games coming up. So against the Ravens, I think the Rams, a few other tough ones. Plus they get the Eagles to come back to Washington in a few weeks to get the home game. So you never know. I wouldn't say the division's done, but definitely a little bit of a frustrating game last night.
Yeah, I think it's more of the protection being outmatched the last couple of weeks instead of Jaden Daniels hitting the wall. But he wants to go to McLaren more than he did last night. And when you can get pressure with just 4, it gives you an extra guy to bracket McLaren. They were going to take away his guy.
Yeah, so. he had a couple bad reads though. I thought there was that I think in the second quarter when they were backed up and they had a chance to get the first down, he had 2 guys open. He went to run for it, didn't make it. Then they had that costly drop by Eckler when they were driving maybe to get another field goal or potentially a touchdown. They had to punt. So it just wasn't a great game. The play calling I thought was very suspect by Kingsbury. But, what can you do? It is maybe a rookie wall a little bit, but, we'll see. We'll see what happens, see if they can bounce back. They have a bunch of easy type of games coming up. New Orleans, Carolina. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. You going to watch the fight somewhere, huh? Tonight?
I'm definitely going to watch the fight. I think I took Tyson. I got him at a lot better odds than he is now. I got him at plus 241. I think he looks in great shape. And if one thing I know, and a mutual friend of ours, Paul Bovey, has always told me, age is just a number. If you're willing to put the time, and I'm telling you, if you put the time, effort to train, age is just a number. And I saw Tyson yesterday on the weigh-in when he slapped him. I mean, he looked in tremendous condition. I couldn't believe how ripped up he was. I mean, I'm impressed, and I think he's not going to go out there and just embarrass himself and get knocked out by Jake Paul. The one thing I would say is that Jake Paul looks like he's on a lot of performance enhancers, I might say. Guy looks about
what makes
30
you say
pounds,
that?
30 pounds bigger than the last time I saw him, but I don't know. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to root for Tyson. Maybe get a little early round knockout. We'll see what happens.
Oh man, where are you going to watch it though? In town?
I'm probably just gonna watch it at my house. I like I watch at my house. Got the other games on. Watch the VSiN contest show later. Get ready for Saturday morning. Saturday mornings come early out here. 9 a.m. first game.
Yes, I'm well aware. Let's get to your picks. Look, I was horrible on my pick last week with LSU, man. I'd sometimes a little myopic, I guess, too close to the sun. But that was a terrible read. I'm shocked at the egg that they laid in front of that place that was ready to blow. I mean, ready to blow. But we did pick the Ole Miss game last week, but I did tell you, how is Texas number 3 seed with that damn schedule with the best win at Vanderbilt? I mean, what a joke that schedule is, huh, Chris?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to go against Texas again. Definitely playing Arkansas. I'm not sure what number you got up there now. I bet it earlier in the week at plus 14.
Yeah,
so probably 12 and a half.
Yeah, it's 12 and a half.
Well, I was going to say, who is Texas' best win? Michigan, Oklahoma? It's sad to say it's probably Vandy, like you said. I mean, this Texas team, I've been going against them all year. It was my game of the year when I went against them with Georgia, took them with Vandy the following week. And I know Arkansas, last time they came off a bye, they got smoked by LSU, but I've been reading some of the comments from the players saying they're taking this bye week a little bit different, a little more harder practices. And Sam Pittman's been reminding the team how much of an old rivalry this is. He's been playing old clips of some of the old days just to, instill into the players how much they're supposed to hate Texas. And they're getting some good injury reports from Jalen Green and Jaquindon Jackson, both probable to play. Jackson was the Texas transfer, and they said one of the major talking points again to come to Arkansas was he'd get to play against Texas. So I'm sure he's ready to play this game. I really don't understand how Texas is that ranked high in the playoff ranking. And I mentioned about a month ago, is it possible that this Texas team could not make the playoffs? And if somehow they have a tight game to Arkansas and lose to A&M, who's their big win? So I think the points are a gift. I can see this game being a high-scoring type of game. The only time Texas played a decent offense, and I mean decent, because Georgia's the 49th ranked offense in the country, they got kind of blitzed. Now, Arkansas is coming in averaging 6.2 yards a play. I think they're going to put up some points against Texas. And conversely, I think Texas is going to score against Arkansas as well, as Arkansas gives up 6 points yards a play, and Texas is rolling at 6.5 yards per play. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I'm going to take the points, and I think there's an outside shot Arkansas could pull off an upset.
All right, Arkansas plus the 12.5 and over in the Texas-Arkansas game, 57.5. So 2 of your 5 right out the chute there. Let's move on. Let's go to the big one in Provo. And this line has been coming down with Kansas. And Kansas, who in all 6 of their losses they were leading in the fourth quarter. We talk about what's your boy's name? The offense coordinator went to Penn State, Max. So
Kotelnicki.
Yeah, so he there was a little transition issue with the new offense coordinator for Jalen Daniels, but he's got it rolling pretty good now. Last 3 games, they're putting up about 500 yards a game. You like Kansas as well on the road here against Provo. Maybe a little pressure getting to the Cougars, huh?
Yeah, I do like Kansas. Another BYU miracle last week, and I had Utah on the show, and I was almost ready for another disastrous bad beat. The North Texas bad beat was bad enough. I thought I was going to sit here and blow this game. But another miracle, as we talked about last week, the only reason BYU keeps winning these games is they keep getting the huge advantage of the turnover battle. Last week, Utah fumbled, had 2 interceptions. This is the craziest stat I found on BYU. Third down conversion percentage, they're only 29%. That ranks 126 in the country, only ahead of FIU, Northwestern, Purdue, Duke, Houston, Florida State, Southern Miss, and, of course, Kent. I mean, how is this team, sixth-ranked team in the country, third in the playoff picture? It's all smoke and mirrors. Kansas is coming in 6.2 yards per play. Last 3 games, 7.4 yards per play. That's top 5 in the country. Jalen Daniels last 3 weeks has accounted for 6 touchdowns passing, 3 touchdowns running. Kansas, the last 3 games, they beat Houston, who's been hot as well. The near miss at K-State, where they should have won the game if they didn't fumble, trying to run out the clock. And they beat Iowa State pretty handily last week. Leipold's got this team playing some of the best football in the country. Kansas outright win. But if you can get 3, 2.5, take the points. But I think Kansas wins this game outright.
All right, California and Syracuse. Nothing says ACC like traveling from Saratoga to Bay Meadows, huh? There we go.
Golden Gate is closed. Golden Gate is closed.
It's California in Berkeley. 10 points. It's up to 10 now, minus 108 at our local shop here at DraftKings, the Queen.
Yeah, I'm not a big favorite guy. I played this earlier in the week at -7, and they've been taking money all week. And the reason why is Syracuse is without their starting quarterback, Jaden Bellamy. Their other starting cornerback, Marcellus Barnes, is already lost for the year. Their best linebacker, Marlo Wax, has been banged up all year. Got banged up a little bit last week. He's questionable to play. They lost 2 D tackles in the BC game, Take Wilson and Kevin Jobity. So this defense was lit up by Boston College, who's offensively challenged, who had to go to their backup quarterback. So it was kind of surprising to see how many points BC was able to put up on Cal. Not sure if it was just because the quarterback change or Syracuse, or just Syracuse's defense that kind of just mailed it in. So this is a tough spot, cross-country trip like you mentioned. And this Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback from Cal, has got this offensive passive game really going. Last 2 weeks, 749 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Only 1 interception. I think he should feast on a depleted secondary. The secondary is going to be depleted, and the pass rush is going to be limited because the 2 linemen are out. So, like I said, I don't usually play favorites, but a terrible spot for Cuse. And if one other thing, if you look at Cal, they are one couple plays and a few missed field goals away from being 9-0. They lost the Miami game on the controversial call. They lost the Florida State game by 5 points. Yeah. And then they missed 2 field goals back-to-back weeks where they could have won the game. This team could be 9-0 and in the playoff hunt. So I think they get really right this week against a very injured Syracuse team, and I think they cover the 10.
Oh, I'll take it a step further. Pitt, Florida State, and Miami. They should have won those games. They should have won those games. Yeah.
So, couple missed chip shot field goals, too.
All right. And finally, since a little homerism, you may sense the accent, my man. Going back to Chestnut Hill, huh? What you know about your homeboys at Boston College? They're going to keep this game close?
I'll tell you one thing. They had this Thomas Castellanos, who was, a little smaller guy, looks like Kyler Murray, running around the field. Well, in week 4, he suffered a concussion against Michigan State, and since then he hasn't been the same guy. He didn't play against Western Kentucky, came back against Virginia, 2 interceptions, came back against Virginia Tech, 3 fumbles. Versus Louisville, he was only 13 for 28, and last week only 2 for 7 with an INT before being benched. Well, he has decided to leave the team. Bill O'Brien benched him. Well, Bill O'Brien said that this other quarterback, Grayson James, has earned the right to start. I really liked how he said that. He did a little interview on the radio. Kid came in 5 and 6, 51 yards and a touchdown, showed some smart. But the BC running game finally got going with a quarterback that actually step back, do a little play action, who can actually complete a pass. So I think the BC running game is going to keep going. They got 300 yards last week against Q, so I'm not calling for that. But I think if they get the running game going, they'll be able to shorten this game. And 19 points seems like a lot. The line opened at 14. It goes to 19 because they're losing Castellanos. But I don't think Castellanos is a detriment. I think it's a positive that he's leaving. This other quarterback seems a little more composed, can throw a forward pass, and the running game gets going. I think 19 points is a lot to lay for SMU.
So to the fight tonight, you don't think this is a McGregor deal where, McGregor's getting all the – just thought we can't bet it in Louisiana. Talk to Carl Johnson, Jack Johnson down at the Bourravage where we'll be this weekend. They are taking bets on the fight tonight. He says all Tyson money coming in. So all Tyson. You don't think it's got people betting with their heart against a guy – 58. I told my son, Chris, I'm 58. I said, hey, boy, you think you can whoop me? But that's this is not the odd house, man. What do you think?
I would say that, like I mentioned before, the age thing doesn't bother me as much with the 2-minute rounds. I just have seen Jake Paul fight, and he doesn't look like much of a boxer. Like, I could actually see if Tyson is going to be able to point and jab and maybe make some even points on the guy without knocking him out. He fought that last fight, Jake Paul, and I didn't watch it, but I watched on Twitter afterwards how many ex-boxing people kept saying, can somebody who's a boxer please fight Jake Paul and knock him out or just point him to death and put this whole thing out of misery. And I feel the expertise and the experience that Tyson has, he should be able to, whether he knocks him out or not early, he should be able to even box him enough, and he still have that power to win the fight even on a decision if it comes to that.
Well, Max and I are going to the Pels game tonight in the suite. I'm going straight to Bourravage after the game, right before the fight. So it should be fun tonight. I'm sure I'll be texting you.
Has Max got any Drake May comparisons now that Drake May has become a little more prominent in the NFL? Kid is a spitting image of Drake May.
He looks good.
Yeah, it's very sharp, Max.
We'll take it.
Well, it's not good from under 4.5 win total for the New England Patriots.
Mine either.
Yeah.
Hey, but we got the Commanders over already, so that's
Oh yeah. And I hedged a little bit on the Eagles. I hooked them up with Detroit and Houston in their divisions as well. Hey, look, I hit one pretty good last night though. Halftime, full time. Max, tell them what we released on my boys from the UK, huh?
Yeah, well, Betting Weekly Live. That was a nice one. Plus 700, I believe.
Yeah, plus 700.
Commanders first half and Eagles.
Commanders first half and Eagles in the game. We put it out on OtterBox as well. Yes.
Oh, you should have sent me that. You should have sent me that text before the game. Before the game helps.
The ultimate hedge. It was a big stop before half. Big stop. So, very good stuff. Chris, enjoy the weekend. I'll be in touch, of course. Thank you, man.
All right. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, Max. Talk to you guys later.
All right. Love my boy, Chris Massaro, man. He's a great dude. Met him at the Wynn Sportsbook. It was when LSU was playing St. Mary's that weekend. I had a Steelers ticket. He was pulling for his Patriots, obviously. So, but
Steelers probably covered the way they.
They did. They won that. They won that game. That was one of the few that they were able to beat. That they were able to beat the New England Patriots. Don't forget our friends at Lofton Staffing Services, who brings you Otterlocks each and every week. Lofton Staffing Services, second-generation staffing service. We match hard workers with the most sought-after employers. To Lofton, you're more than just another employee. We care about your interests and will match you with a company that needs your skills. You can complete an application, schedule an interview, even browse jobs at Lofton.jobs. Lofton also offers an unlimited $100 referral bonus. Lofton Staffing Services, we've been putting people to work since 1979. 924-0200 and Lofton.jobs. Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris at Edward Jones Investments from Rufino's on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It's Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris of Edward Jones Investments. Now, back to Live at Lunch from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Troy Macker joins us right now. Troy, how you doing, buddy? Okay. So anyway, while we get Troy on, remind everybody that we are brought to you by our good friends over at Los Reyes Mexican Grill. We were there yesterday. This is Los Reyes patio weather. Open up the garage-style doors, and man, so you can sit out in the sun, or you can sit in the shaded area inside with the windows open. It's the best of both worlds, man. Got TVs to watch. We watch a little horse racing and ESPN, the ball games and things like that. So, Los Reyes Mexican Grill, tell Nick, great happy hour, 2:30 to 6:30, 7 days a week. Los Reyes Mexican Grill on Lee, just off of Nicholson across from Mike Anderson's. Troy, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
We're not happy around here, Troy. We can't bet the fight tonight in Louisiana.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Neither can I.
This is we've been on the good side of sort of the state by state regulations on what you can bet, whether it's a draft and things like that. This we're not. How many what percentage of the states at Bet Rivers are offering a fight tonight?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere between 30 and 45%. It's
okay,
not a lot.
A little less than half, huh?
Yeah, and it's surprising because we've taken a very healthy handle. We haven't offered odds on all of his fights. Some of the more high-profile Jake Paul fights, Tommy Fury, his last one against Mike Perry, and Nate Diaz, we did, and they did, mid to high six-figure handles. So I think we're trending towards that again. I anticipate there will be some big bets the next few hours simply because of who his opponent is.
What are the odds right now, though, at the states that are available?
Jake Paul, I believe, is like minus 260.
I think it's going down. I think it's going down from there. What is
sorry,
it?
Actually,
I can't read that.
Tyson is plus 260, and Jake Paul is about minus 420.
Still, Max?
And
I thought it was
with
going
the tie.
down.
With the tie, it's Jake Paul.
That's a
minus
three-way.
250. Three-way with the tie is minus 200. Is what I'm looking at.
Oh wow! Okay.
Okay.
That is interesting. We've talked about the Jake Paul fights, and they're circus fights. This is the circus of all circus fights because of who he's fighting, and we really have to separate the Mike Tyson we all know and who the Mike Tyson is that's going to step into the ring, and that is not a knock on the type of boxer he was or his skills, even as a 58-year-old. It has everything to do with the fact that he's 58 years old, battling a guy who has, whether or not you think Jake Paul is good or not, he is far more physically fit, is far stronger, and has, even though he's looking a little overweight, has far better gas tank. So that is really what this fight comes down to. It has nothing to do with the boxing skill, I don't think.
What kind of what, Max?
No.
Okay. What kind of Paul and the decision? Because it is 2-minute rounds. So 8 2-minute rounds. That's a big deal when you're talking about a 58-year-old boxer in here. And and Chris Massaro was just on with us, and he's on Tyson. Where we're doing the show this weekend at Beau Rivage, they're getting nothing but Tyson action. Is that the same at Bet Rivers, Troy?
No, actually. So, I think I haven't checked in an hour or so, but it was about 66% of the money was on Jake Paul. But tickets, it's about 62% towards Tyson. And what that indicates to me is, the big bets and the sharp money is on Jake Paul. But people who are betting $1, $5, $10, $20 are all betting on Tyson because they're people who are want to root for the guy they grew up watching. He's one of the most culturally significant athletes of our time. Probably the second most important boxer of all time behind Muhammad Ali. So you're seeing a lot of, just small bets on Tyson because why not? And people don't like Jake Paul. But the people who are actually investing money seem to be investing in Jake Paul, which I think is the smart play.
Interesting.
I don't like Jake Paul, but I like money, so I'll be betting on
exactly.
Jake Paul.
Agreed.
I mean, which Paul the decision?
3-1, roughly.
What do you mean? Minus 300?
No, plus 300 to win
plus
by decision.
300. And what is he to knockout?
A plus 140. Now these are lighter gloves, so the knockout's a little bit harder to reach in this fight. And Tyson,
Well, why would you lay the money line on Paul when you can You can bet both of those. It's not going to finish in a tie. Troy, you think so, though? Huh? You think the tie is a possibility, huh?
I think it's a smart play. You know, on one of the Bet Rivers podcasts with Nigel Seeley, who's a great handicapper in Europe, he talked about how it's really smart to get the draw before the fight. And if you're going to be watching the fight and checking your bet slips, you know, if this fight goes past the second round or third round, and it's going to be a tight fight, you know, anytime that Jake Paul has fought someone with actual boxing skills, it's been very tight, very close. They're going to want the big goal here is to get the rematch. That is the goal of every major boxing match. We know how backwards boxing is and how many high-profile fights are very close. You know, you're going to be able to cash out if that's close in the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. So right now, you know, draw is at basically 9-1 plus 850. You know, if you nibble on that and it's tight down the stretch, you're going to be able to cash out for a pretty good money that that is probably more advantageous than letting it go to the judges' decisions. Because as bad as mixed martial arts judging is, boxing judging has been doing it worse for much longer. Interesting.
Well, I mean, this is when you bet this kind of circus. I mean, this is what I've never seen. What's the oldest guy's ever fought? A boxing match. This got to be it. Before this, what was it? George Foreman? It was like in his early to mid 40s.
I know Roy Jones Jr. was fighting a couple of years ago. Roy Jones Jr. He was in his 50s, but not 58.
He was in his 50s.
Yeah.
Really?
Some of these
I know. What about Evander Holyfield? I know he came out of retirement a couple years ago to fight, and let's see. No, never mind. He was in his late 40s.
Well, okay. Well, it's still, wow. With Foreman, well, how late? Wow. All right, Detroit college football 80% club. Who are we looking at?
Yeah, so right now there are only two teams that are backed by both 80% of the tickets and the handle. We got plenty of teams backed by at least 80% of the money. I think it's 18 teams and about 11 teams backed by 80% of the tickets to cover the spread. But only two teams backed by at least 80% of both the tickets and the handle. One is Penn State minus 28.5 at Purdue. Purdue has been no good. Except when they played, Northwestern. So right now, 83.8% of the money is on Penn State minus 28.5, 80% of the tickets. And the other one is Sam Houston State minus 17 versus Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State, the Owls, I believe, in their first year as a D1 program. They've actually covered the spread a couple times in really bad spots for myself, fading them hard. But Sam Houston State minus 17 is 98% of the money and 84% of the tickets.
Yeah, the Kennesaw State beat Liberty in that midweek game in Sun Belt, and then they followed it up with another cover. It's
interesting looking at the 80% club, especially for money this week. A lot of them are dogs. Charlotte plus 2.5 versus USF, 98% of the money. Wake Forest plus 11.5 at North Carolina, 93% of the money. Air Force plus 3.5 at Oregon State. The most surprising one to me, Kansas plus 2.5 at BYU. We've taken a lot of money. This is actually the most wagered on play the weekend thus far, and it's backed by 92% of the money. Kansas at an undefeated BYU. I just don't think that Kansas, is within 2 points of BYU unless there's something I'm missing here.
Kansas playing a lot better, Troy. And Kansas, all six losses, they were winning in the fourth quarter. So they are better than their record. And, is BYU, is it just a matter of time before somebody trips? I mean, Kansas is better than Oklahoma State right now, and Oklahoma State had BYU beat a couple of Fridays ago. Kansas is better than Utah, and that's a rivalry game, though. That's maybe a bad one to throw out there. But a lot of sharp action, too. On Kansas in this game.
Troy, you were right, by the way. Evander Holyfield came back at 58, fought Vitor Belfort. It was branded a disgrace and one of the saddest events in boxing after he was beaten.
Well, here we go. We got this one will give that one a run for its money tonight.
I'll tell you this, Vitor was a multi-time UFC title contender, Pride champion, some of the fastest hands in mixed martial arts.
Right.
And at his peak, while never a boxer, far more gifted inside the ring than Jake Paul.
Troy, real quick, we're up against the clock. Who's the biggest plays in the NFL, public-wise?
So you'd expect it's a lot of teams playing really bad teams. Right now, it seems to be the Lions
Detroit.
minus 14. Green Bay minus 5.5. Houston at Dallas. That number is probably going to come down a little bit just because it's a later game. But really,
Right.
Detroit is the one that covers the boxes in terms of volume of tickets, amount of handle, percentage of money and tickets on the spread. I believe they're just one of two teams, along with Green Bay, that's backed by at least 80% of the tickets and money. Green Bay minus 5.5 at Chicago. I'm surprised that isn't garnering more money because everyone is out on Chicago right now.
Well, thank God that they flexed out of that Jets game. We finally get the New York crap teams out of there. We get Cincinnati and the Chargers on Sunday night. Thank you, Troy.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
All right, don't forget our friends at United Community Bank, the local way to bank big with locations from Baton Rouge to Golden Meadow. We've been serving the people of Southern Louisiana for over 50 years. At United Community Bank, your business is our business. We support the hardworking folks behind local business from initial startup loans to ongoing planning and assessments. United Community Bank is here for you. Our great team at United Community Bank, Nicole Glover, David Henry, Prentice Wilkes. Discuss how we can help your business today. David Henry, David Campbell, United Community Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris and Edward Jones Investments from Rufino's on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It's Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris of Edward Jones Investments. Now, back to Live at Lunch from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Football Sunday does originate from the Beau Rivage in Biloxi this Sunday, and then our show Live at Lunch on Monday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. includes a Brian Kelly press conference. Carl Johnson sent me the odds for it. It is minus 250 plus 190. Jake Paul, Mike Tyson on the money line. The three-way result, if you include the tie, minus 200 plus 200. To go the distance. The yes to go the distance is plus 150. I think it's knockout with 2-minute rounds, Max. That's
It's
tough.
possible, but I'll be playing Jake Paul by decision, 3-1.
Jake Paul by decision is 3-1 plus 300. Tyson by decision 10-1. Tyson by knockout, TKO or DQ 275. Jake Paul by KO, TKO, DQ plus 110. Oh, I'll take the Jake Paul decision too, huh?
Yep.
Draw 10-1. I'm gonna get Nigel on the phone, huh?
I understood his
He'll
insight.
answer my calls right now.
Some of these Netflix sort of specials, it's in for money. Maybe they just want to do it again.
Oh, no. You listen. You approach with caution, okay? This is, all gambling you approach with caution. I get it, but but it's just all the money coming on Tyson because sentimental people betting what they want to cheer for. Tyson's way more popular with the people with the money. We'll see. Bruce Marshall when we return. Lock of the Week Friday presented by Tex Morris and Edward Jones Investments from Rufino's on 104.5 ESPN.
It's Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris of Edward Jones Investments. Now, back to Live at Lunch from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, kicking off hour number 2 over here at Rufino's. Rufino's are the weekend specials again. Appetizers this weekend today and all through the weekend. The Angry Shrimp and the Wagyu Short Ribs are, well, those sound good. Entree features the Fish Oscar. That's a grouper with the jumbo lump crab meat with Bearnaise sauce, side of asparagus. New Orleans ribeye. The 16-ounce ribeye with New Orleans-style barbecue shrimp, mashed potatoes. Suggested wine pairing for the fish, a Frank Family Chardonnay out of Napa. Suggested wine pairing for the ribeye, Turnbull Cabernet out of Napa as well. Brucey, pretty good last week, huh? We got you down for 5-2. Had to take that LSU with all of us. Oh, boy, we drowned the Tigers. That was, we're in a little angry, pissed, embarrassed, a little bit of everything after that one, Bruce.
Jimmy, let me lighten the mood a bit. I was watching Game Day last week, and I swore I saw you and Charlie in the crowd. because there were two banners that got my attention. One said, Bama can't even beat Rice, 0-3. And that took some study because that's right, Bama has not ever beaten Rice, so they haven't played him in 68 years. So I thought Charlie might have held that one. You, Jimmy, were holding the one that said, we want Vandy. So I thought both of those were very clever, and whatever happened in the game was just secondary because those signs were great.
Oh, man, yes. Max was at the game. The place was ready to blow, man. It was just never got a chance. Never, ever, ever. Major disappointment. You know, hey, man. And how about the run? So you talked to Norsworthy. Is he on cloud 9 after Ole Miss? I mean, just dominated Georgia after a rough start.
He was doing the moonwalk after the game, if you could believe that. He was so excited, and they were. And Brett actually called that, by the way. He said it was going to be Ole Miss by 18. I told him he was crazy, and sure enough, he was right. So, yeah, they're pretty excited up at Ole Miss, that's for sure.
Yes, Ben Mincy moonwalk. Max, is that a thing, huh?
That sounds right. I saw he was meeting John Gruden, showing him his football drills yesterday.
He might shoot Mincy. Mincy might get some ass implants if Ole Miss keeps winning, huh?
His pants were falling down yesterday, yes.
Inverted buttocks, my man. Mincy. Oh, Brucey. All right, man. Let me ask you the big game. I don't know if you have it as one of your picks, but boy, a lot of sharp action. And look, we know about Kansas. They're better than their 3-6 record. All 6 of their losses, they were leading in the fourth quarter. We know about Jalen Daniels, a little transition issue early because he lost his offensive coordinator to Penn State. He's got it going again. Last 3 games, they're averaging right at about 500 yards a game. They took care of Iowa State easy last week. Pressure on BYU in this spot with the late one tomorrow night, 9:15 Central kick?
Oh, yeah. I think they're feeling it, Jimmy, and they know they caught a big break last week. And they caught a couple breaks last week at Utah. But, you know, you can't just have these perils of Pauline scenarios every week. I mean, they had Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago, and Oklahoma State's really struggling. And that went right down to the last few seconds, and they had to pull that out. And then, of course, Utah, we saw what happened last week and all the stuff in the last minute of that game. So I think you're right. I think the noose is getting a little tight around BYU's neck, and that's actually kind of like I don't mind BYU people having the noose tightened around their neck. They deserve it a little bit, I think.
Oh, jeez.
I think...
Golly.
Just joking. But, no, I think Kansas... Jimmy, you make a point. Kansas could be easy 7-2 or 8-1 right now, easily. And the way they keep fighting, I mean, this is. A lot of teams would have just packed it in after. We'll talk about one or two of those later in the segment here, I'm sure. But they keep fighting, and they still have a shot to get bowl eligible. I don't put it past them to win out here. They still got Dion coming up too. I think Kansas can win this game. I really do.
At 9 games into the year, when your best win is against Vanderbilt, you're number 3 in the poll. What the hell's going on? I mean, I am so aggravated with this kiss-ass welcoming party for Texas into the SEC. I mean, you saw it in the summer when they gave them that gift schedule. I mean, my goodness. 12.5 now. It's going down. It was 14.5, Bruce. Arkansas, this is an early kick in Fayetteville tomorrow. Old Southwest Conference matchup. Can Arkansas compete here?
Well, I think this is kind of neat. Just one good thing about Texas coming to the SEC, we get to see this again. I'm not sure this is going every year, but just to see Texas and Arkansas again, just like we'll see A&M and Texas in 2 weeks. So that is good. And, of course, memories of 1969. Let me just remind people there, that game, that's game of the century, would not have been the game of the century had Bo Schembechler and Michigan not beaten Ohio State 2 weeks earlier, because Ohio State would have sewn up the national title. They were barred from going back to the Rose Bowl by the no-repeat. They were a big number 1 pick, and Texas and Arkansas would not have been a 1-2 game in 69. Having said that, Arkansas probably still should have won that game. Now, to tomorrow, Fayetteville, you're right, early kickoff. The word from Fayetteville is Taylon Green is going to be good to go. It was probably good for Arkansas to be off last week, so his leg has apparently healed enough, and that's good for Arkansas. I'm wondering, Jimmy, if Pittman needs one more of these big wins. He got one against Tennessee. That was really good. But, I mean, LSU came in there and smoked them, and so did Ole Miss 2 weeks ago. So he's a little bit on the ropes here. They're 5-5 if they lose this game. I want to remind everybody, Texas beat, and you know this too, I mean, they beat a Florida team using a third quarterback last week. I'm not bowled over by that. I can't get out of my mind, Jimmy, last year, down the stretch, Houston out on the Big 12 road, places like TCU and Houston that did not have good years last year, pushed Texas to the wall. And one last note. This is one of these games this week, Jimmy. You've got a high-ranked team going out and laying near 2 TDs on the road. Oregon's in this spot this week. Boise's in this spot. The opposition isn't that bad. These teams just want to get out of there with a win, and to run up a margin, I think it's going to be really tough. I think Arkansas's got a shot tomorrow. They're going to keep this thing close. I will take the points with the Razorbacks. We'll see what happens in the early kickoff in Fayetteville.
And so you like San Jose State to stay close to Boise this week as well?
And I like Wisconsin against Oregon too.
Oh, okay. The Old Navy coach is at San Jose State. How have they been doing this year, Brucey?
6-3. They are bowl eligible. They had a nice win at Oregon State last week. We'll talk about Oregon State in a second. But they've switched quarterbacks. He's not running the option there. Look back in September there. They darn near beat Washington State up at Pullman. One thing about Boise last week, I was a little surprised. They couldn't shake Nevada, and Nevada is not having a great year. I mean, they're not that bad. They're not as bad as they were last year. But they might be coming, even with Genty running and Madsen having a good year at quarterback. They couldn't shake Nevada last week. I'm not sure this is going to be easy for Boise tomorrow at San Jose.
Please fill our younger audience in, including Max here. Talk about that. Max, did you hear what Bruce said about Ohio State? They couldn't go to a Rose Bowl, the no repeat? Mm-hmm. What is that, Max? Bruce filled Max in our younger audience, what that means, how that used to go.
Well, the Big Ten used to, in fact, the old PCC used to do this too. They would bar a team from going to the Rose Bowl 2 years in a row, and that is when that was the only way for a Big Ten team to get into a bowl game. And it went for the old AAU, AWU, Pac-8 back then as well. That went all the way through 71. So Ohio State was the defending national champion after winning it all in 68, unbeaten. That was the Super Softs. That was Rex Kern, and that was John Brockington and Jack Tatum and all those guys. So 69, they were number one all the way through that season until they hit Michigan right at the end. They weren't going to the Rose Bowl, but they were going to be the national champion that year regardless. All they had to do is beat Michigan that last game. They couldn't do it. Schembechler won. Michigan got the Rose Bowl bid. It was down to them or Purdue. Michigan got the Rose Bowl, but had Schembechler not beaten Woody that year, Texas Arkansas 69 would not have lived in infamy in college football lore like it has. It would not have been a 1-2 matchup, and so Texas people, they got to thank Michigan a little bit.
Max, President Nick,
back in September.
I'll fill you in on the politics. President Nixon was at the game, and he went into Texas locker room to congratulate them. Yes, so I'll keep you up to date on the politics, Max. So, but
maybe Curtis can.
And here's the other thing: like in the '80s, for the SEC, because they didn't have divisional play, in where everybody had to play each other, and then obvious the head-to-head was the tiebreaker. The tiebreaker was on who got to go to the Sugar Bowl. What do you think it was?
Not head-to-head, I'm guessing.
Who has been there? Who has not been there more recently? So, LSU and Auburn are tied, but Auburn went to the Sugar Bowl 2 years ago, and LSU hadn't been in 5. LSU would go.
Sounds like a bad rule.
Yes, this great sport of ours, our favorite, has all kinds of bad history. There's no doubt. But hey, let's throw a parade. Hey, Bruce, look, we got a 12-team playoff, man. Let's throw a parade 45 years late for it.
Well, 55 years late too. I mean, by the way, that's how Indiana got to the Rose Bowl in '67 because they had never been, and Minnesota had been more recently than them. So that's how Indiana got there. By the way, George H.W. Bush was in President Nixon's traveling party at Fayetteville that day. So you had two presidents actually watching that game, although several years before HW got into the White House.
Bruce, give me a couple other that you like before we get to your smaller conference picks.
Yeah, I'm going to, let's look at Notre Dame here, Jimmy. We've talked about them every week. We liked them last week. Unfortunately, I don't have Florida State to go against this week, so I'm a little bummed about that. But unless they're playing Charleston Southern, I'm not sure if it's this week or next week. No matter. They've pushed this number a bit too high against Virginia. Now, I know Virginia had that game against North Carolina 3 weeks ago, but I think that was an outlier, Jimmy, because they bounced back and they won at Pitt last week, and that is more characteristic of what Virginia's been doing. They're 10-2. Their last 12 as a dog. Tony Elliott's turned that around. Colin Drea gives them more quarterback than Musket did when Elliott made that decision early in the season to go with Colin Drea. I think it was a plus. 23.5 is an awful lot. Listen, I respect Notre Dame, and we talked about their point spread mark, 16-5-1 under Marcus Freeman since last year. And this is a top 10 defense again for Al Golden. But this is just darn many points, Jimmy. 23.5 is just too many. Virginia's not that bad. We saw them hang in there, that game against Clemson, when Clemson was trying to get the number 4 weeks ago. So I'm going to take Virginia there. Two other legacy games this weekend, Jimmy. And by the way, I am on my way to the Bay Area. I'm going to watch the Louisville-Stanford game tomorrow. I'll explain it more to you later, if they let me in at Stanford. So anyway, I'm taking my grandson to the game. But in the Bay Area tomorrow, Syracuse is playing at Cal. Here's another history lesson. The last time Syracuse played Cal in 1968, it was in Berkeley. You can look at the Sports Illustrated that week in the SI Vault if you wish. 43-0 Berkeley. Cal forced 9 turnovers. And that was it for Ben Schwartzwalder and Syracuse. They were never the same after that. They were a top 10 team going in. They were never the same. They're getting about 10 points tomorrow at Cal. And Cal's played pretty well. They get bowl eligible if they win. But I kind of think Syracuse, like we said, that one bad game that Virginia had against North Carolina, similar for Syracuse, the game against Pitt was bad. And I know they had that trouble with BC last week too, but McCord and them, just because Cal has had a history of blowing some leads this year, 10 looks a little bit too much for me. The other one, L.A. Coliseum tomorrow, Nebraska, USC. Man, I remember 1970 when Nebraska came in. Now, that was an eventual national title Nebraska team, but SC was favored by 12 in that game. It was the week after that 42-21 famous win at Birmingham. Nebraska and SC played to a 21-21 draw. Joe Orduna, 67-yard TD run. And that USC team played the number 1 and 2 teams in the country that year, Nebraska and Notre Dame, and didn't lose to either of them. 1-0-1. I was at the Notre Dame game in the rain, yet they were finishing 6th in the Pac-8 that year. Go figure. I can explain more about that later. Anyway, tomorrow I think Loyola's going to play. Nebraska, the magic number is 7. They always lose these games by 7 or fewer, and it's 7.5 last I saw. SC has switched quarterbacks to Maeva, the UNLV transfer. They're not that good. I think Nebraska hangs in there tomorrow, so Nebraska, Syracuse, and Virginia in those for me.
What's the Nebraska line? +7 right now. That line has come down a little bit, Bruce. Virginia down 21.5. So, it was 23.5 when we were looking at it yesterday, but it's come down a little bit. I have to ask your perspective on something. When Colorado, I would think, is a little bit of a public team, huh? I mean, Deion Sanders, for better or for worse, he's attracted some attention, and people have been betting him. They have covered 7 in a row, Bruce. 7 in a row. When they lost by Kansas State, they were catching 3.5. One of those was a Hail Mary, but they and our buddy Patrick Everson from VegasInsider.com said, man, they're betting them again right out the chute. But Utah, that was an emotionally draining rivalry game that got away from them. I mean, if you think they're a little, if you wonder if they're a little emotionally affected, see their AD. He got slapped with a little fine this week, but maybe I'm ready to fade Colorado, but I don't know if I could do it against this Utah team that just is punchless offensively.
They went to another quarterback last week and they showed a little life, but I think you're right. Maybe wait till the Kansas game. I think that comes next week for Colorado. And they've been covering numbers. By the way, so is UCLA playing tonight. There's another one I like. 7 straight, if you count the Minnesota game as a W, and if you bet that game before Friday that week. So I'd like UCLA that too. But no, Colorado, listen, I was impressed last week. I thought they were in big trouble at Texas Tech. They fought their way back.
Yeah.
And I think Travis Hunter might well win the Heisman if he has some more big games down the stretch here. So I would keep an eye on the Buffs too.
He's even money. I mean, he's more than half a shot. He is considerable favorite right now, and I can live it. He'd get my vote. I mean, if he's played a major role in his team winning as many games, I think they have one to play with, a little bit of slack in the rope for Colorado to get him home for that. Nobody's even come close to doing what he's doing. I mean, he's lights out on both sides of the ball, and he doesn't come off the field. I mean, in the era of load management, come on, Bruce. I mean, this guy, give it to him now. He deserves it, man.
Yeah.
So,
he's a
Bruce,
I love him.
some smaller conference games that you really like this week.
How about this one, Jimmy? I love this one. Oregon State's going into Air Force. Their land, last time I looked, 3.5. Oregon State, unlike Virginia, which off its bye after a bad loss came back and won at Pitt last week, Oregon State got boat raced at Cal, week off, came home to San Jose State, flat as a pancake. This season's over for Oregon State. They still got Boise and Washington State on deck. And now you got to go to 6,200 feet to play Air Force this week and face the option. And by the way, the option's starting to work for Air Force. Calhoun has switched quarterbacks to the sophomore Jones, and 344 yards versus Fresno on the ground last week. 45 minutes of possession. This looks like the old Air Force. They got 2 covers in a row. I think Air Force wins this one outright tomorrow in Colorado Springs. One other one, Mountain West, late tomorrow night. UNLV is laying. Last I saw, Jimmy, I'm on the road right now, but I saw a 21 out there, San Diego State. Jimmy, that's too much. Let me tell you the other thing here. And we see this sometimes when a team like UNLV goes out and blows the doors off of somebody in a national TV game like they did against Fresno State. Well, FS1 counts as national TV. Everybody saw that 59-14 game, and I think that UNLV had been covering a lot of numbers up to that point, but that, I think, distorted the perceptions of UNLV in the marketplace a little too much. Too much of a premium put on UNLV since. They've only covered one of their next 5. And that one was only by a half point at Oregon State, and Oregon State had a chance to force overtime right at the end. San Diego State is not great, but they're not horrible. They've got what's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher in Cooper. O'Neal, the freshman quarterback, is starting to throw the ball more. 21 is just maxed out there for me. I think San Diego State hangs within that tomorrow night against the Rebels, who, by the way, they're going to need Colorado State to lose to get into the Mountain West title game, and Colorado State does not play Boise until maybe the conference championship game. So there's no guarantee UNLV is going to get another shot at Boise in next month.
Great stuff, Bruce, as always. Max, thanks, Bruce, for the history lesson.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I feel like I was back in college.
Whenever some of the others, you hear, back in the day, you're saying, thank God they don't do college football like back in the day. I mean, my goodness.
I'll be sure to study for next segment.
Bruce, have a good weekend. Enjoy Palo Alto. I mean, the arched, with the Spanish architecture and the arched passageways. It's very much like LSU. LSU's got the oak trees. Palo Alto has the palm trees, but yes, the same similar Spanish architecture there. Thank you, Brucey. Yes, what?
I hope they don't make me. I hope I don't have to wear a mask tomorrow. So we'll see.
Okay, we hope so too. Good luck on that. Thank you, Bruce. We appreciate it. Don't forget our friends at Total Maintenance. You know, my buddy Lucas Ragusa and Total Maintenance, one of South Louisiana's oldest and largest AC and heating companies. AC heating, generator installations, maintenance, service today, every day means you call today, you get service today. So that's right, same day service. You will never sleep hot when it's at Total Maintenance. Factory authorized dealers for Carrier, American Standard, Daikin, and Rheem Products. Generators, authorized dealer for Generac and Cummings as well. We're covering both Metro Baton Rouge and the New Orleans areas, but we don't compromise. It's a completely different Baton Rouge staff and office, as well as the New Orleans separate staff and office as well. Membership programs are a smart way to do it. We've got too many things to worry about. We'll cover all services with discounts and extended warranties, so we'll let you know when it's time for your unit to be surfaced. Right now, it's get that heating check before you use it. It's starting to get a little cooler. One-time heater check, normally $179, is just $79 if you mention my name, Jimmy Ott. Total Maintenance, give them a call, 480-1000, 480-1000. We are Total Maintenance. Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris and Edward Jones Investments from Rufino's. We'll switch it around a little bit when we come back. Usually Charlie's spot. We got his picks we'll do later, and Max is up next with his 5-pack when we return. Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris and Edward Jones Investments from Rufino's at 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It's Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris of Edward Jones Investments. Now, back to Live at Lunch from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Max is heating up. He beat us last year in 4 in 1 week, and then, whoa. 0-5, Max. Who were the picks last week again?
I bet against Army and Navy. That was a mistake. I bet against
you took
South Florida, North Texas.
Okay.
Was on the bad side of some injury news.
North Texas, 3 points.
Yeah, how with that offense? I don't know.
They never threatened. It wasn't like they moved the ball.
ULL, I faded them. La Tech faded them, even though they lost.
Still only lost is Tulane?
Yes.
Guy's doing a pretty good job.
He is.
Billy Napier might not be able to get his old job back.
And then Vanderbilt plus 6.5. Finally, that wagon came to an end.
Look like Vanderbilt. Maybe this wear and tear of this schedule is taking its toll. They've had a lot of close games, a lot of competitive games, and they look just kind of worn down. South Carolina was clearly the right side in that game. I had Vandy too, but clearly the right side. Who are we looking at, Max?
All right, going to start off with a couple of Friday night plays because I went back and you got to self-assess yourself a little bit after an 0-5 week, and I've actually done very well in Friday night games. So I've got 2 of them tonight. We'll start off with Washington -4 against UCLA. Washington, when they can play a team that doesn't run all over them, they have success. And thankfully, UCLA does not run the ball. They don't run the ball well, but they just don't do it. They don't even try. They play with a bit of pace. They pass the ball. This is a UCLA team that's playing a lot better, but I think this is a bad matchup for them. They've covered 6 out of their last 7. You look at Washington, they're just going to dink and dunk their way down the field. UCLA's defense, their strength is their run defense, but Washington's not even going to try there. So Washington wants to pass the ball. UCLA wants to pass the ball. That's just a bad matchup for UCLA all in all. So I'll lay the 4 with Washington, who, they're trying to make a bowl. They're 5-5. It's been a rough year for them, but first year of the new head coach. We'll see if they can cover that number tonight. Also, like Houston, +2 at Arizona tonight. Arizona should not be laying points to anyone. It's a classic spot there. 1-8 against the spread. They won against Utah somehow, even though Utah is really bad this year. They did somehow beat them. That's their only FBS win outside of New Mexico, who also is terrible. So Arizona's been awful in conference. They're 3-6. I guess you could say they're fighting for bowl eligibility, but this team feels like it's quit. Noah Fafita has just been nothing of what he has been in the past. And I look at Houston. They are playing better. They've covered their last 2 games, but they've covered all 3 games in which Zion Chris has started, where he's played most of the game. The ULL transfer is a mobile quarterback. He runs more than he passes, probably, to be honest. But that is a dynamic part of this offense, and it's really opened up some things for Houston. So I think Willie Fritz gets things going. They're 4-5. Maybe they can make a bowl game, and I think they've got a chance to improve to 5-5 tonight there in Arizona. Going to go to the Mountain West. I've sworn off the Mountain West because I've been terrible here, but I'm going to go back to the well, and I'm going to take Hawaii. Jimmy, we need a win here. They've got 4 wins. We've got their win total over. They've got a chance to get it tonight or tomorrow at Utah State. Utah State, this is, again, a bad team, somehow, almost laying points. In this case, Hawaii just has to win by 3. Utah State, their sole win against an FBS school, against Wyoming, who has 2 wins themselves. Hawaii's a different level. They've covered 3 in a row. They're playing good football, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think Braden Shager gets enough offense going against the Utah State defense that is very, 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 very poor.
What's the line there in
Hawaii laying 2.5.
Okay.
That just seems very, very kind
in
to the
Logan.
Rainbow Warriors. Air Force +3 against Oregon State. You just heard it from Bruce, but there's something I'll add to that statement. Air Force's offense, they are playing better with the new quarterback, but they want to run the ball, right, Jimmy? You think about defense against a triple option, against Air Force, Army, and Navy. I learned this last week the hard way, unfortunately. You've got to be able to stop the run. Oregon State, out of 134 FBS teams, 129th in yards per rush given up on the run game. So I think this is just a terrible matchup for an Oregon State team that also seems a little bit in quit mode. They've lost 4 in a row. They failed to cover in 5 consecutive games. Air Force, on the bright side of things, you know they're not going to quit. So even though they're out of a bowl game, they're still seeing the season out on a positive note. I'll take the Falcons at home catching 3 against the Beavers. And finally, this line, maybe it stinks to a lot of people, but to me it makes a lot of sense because BYU is 9-0 and they're only laying 2.5 at home. That's a tough place to play, but Kansas, they should have at least 2 more wins. We have post-game win expectancy that judges these things. It says they should have 2 more wins. You could argue they could have more. BYU is one of the luckiest teams on the other end of things. They just keep getting bailed out. Now, I do worry if the Big 12 referees have to make a call that decides this game, that maybe it goes BYU's way. We've seen this with Miami, but we've also seen with Miami last week that they can lose a game for a change, and I think it's time that BYU does it. Emotional win. They somehow escape against Utah last week, but I think it finally comes to an end. I've faded Kansas a lot early in the season because of that OC change, but they seem to have figured it out. They've covered 3 in a row. They're trending in the right direction, and they're still going for a bowl game. Look, the coach might have lost a lot of his good pub, but I think he's got a chance to right the ship a little bit. And I'll take Kansas to upset the Cougars, the 9-0 undefeated Cougars, and throw a wrench into the Big 12 standings.
Yeah, what's your win total on Hawaii this year?
4.5.
All right, so you got Utah State and New Mexico, so they'll be favored against New Mexico. Could have done it. Lost 29-27 to UNLV last week, but they did win a close one at Fresno, 21-20. That was help. Lost another close one against San Diego State, 27-24 at Snapdragon Stadium. I've been there. Wrexham. So anyway,
that was one of my 5-pack losers. That's when I swore off the Mountain West, but I'm back with 2 of them this week.
So, but Utah State 2-7 on the year. Hawaii's been a little bit better on the road. It used to be bet them at home, bet against them on the road. Well, guess who that team is now? That's the University of Washington Huskies. You know, when Scott Woodward was and Mark Emmert were there, they renovated their stadium. They actually had to play on the Seahawks Stadium for a couple of years. They improved their facility. Who knew it was going to be such a home field advantage? 5-1, 1 yard away from being 6-0 at home against Washington State. 0-4 on the road. So Washington at home tonight. And UCLA, look, give them credit. Deshaun Foster did a nice job. They are competitive, and they're playing sound football. But going on the road here, I think it's a little bit of a step up for them. I'm kind of like on Washington as well. Yeah, Willie Fritz at 4-5. They've already surpassed their win total at 3.5. It was them in Arizona State, depending on who you talk to, picked to finish last in the Big 12 this year. But we know he can coach. There's no doubt Tulane's still reaping the benefits of Willie Fritz's hard work and his good work down in uptown New Orleans. But
just because Kenny Dillingham's doing a good job, that doesn't mean Willie Fritz is doing a bad one. I mean, they were both picked low. Sure, Arizona State's 7-2, but it's still a great job by Willie Fritz as well.
No, that wasn't my point. My point was they were –
It was, they were both low on the total.
Anybody's poll before the season, the best that either one of those teams were picked was second to last. I mean, nobody in a very competitive league this year. Point is, Willie Fritz is and he's a good coach, and they're also on the ascent. They've exceeded expectations this year already, so they're still excited about going to practice and going to play. Not the same at Arizona. So it was a big thing for when Fish left to take the Washington job, but Fafita and the McMillan stayed behind, the quarterback and wide receiver, who were high school teammates. So they stayed, and they were expected to be better. They have been bad this year, and so I'm a little surprised of the sharp action on Arizona. It's on Arizona because Houston was the favorite. Now they've been bet to the underdog as well. Houston's at Arizona, Baylor, and at BYU. Very interesting game for Dave Aranda when they go to Houston next week. So some of the games that we're looking at for this week. Don't forget our our friends over at Dana Brown Law Offices of O.C. Brown, your law firm for a lifetime, 343-1111 and ocbrown.com. So we've got 2 games left at the end of the season. That is when Oklahoma and Vanderbilt come into town. But if you're coming in to see the Tigers play, staying downtown, definitely put into your plans to go check out Jolie Pearl. Speaking of Jolie Pearl, how about locally as well? Man, their pop-up, the Christmas decorations, it blows you away. It is something to see. There is no doubt about that. Ideal place for Christmas parties. Call Miss Elizabeth over at Jolie Pearl for your group, your private event for the holiday season. Any different size group, any type of arrangement you want. You want cash bar, you want this available in your bar, you want this. Totally different catering menu that we have as well. Jolie Pearl, it's ideal for holiday parties.
Jimmy Ott's 5-pack of picks, brought to you by Supreme Rice. Make sure you use Louisiana rice, grown by Louisiana farmers since 1936. Available at most local grocery stores. Supreme Rice.
Supreme Rice, you're trying to get that restaurant quality of your rice when you make it at home. I've tried until I finally get the right product. The parboil rice, it's a new product line of our Supreme Rice products. It's available at wherever you find your Supreme Rice. Louisiana rice, grown, milled, processed in Louisiana since 1936. And the parboil rice is just a big, thick, long grain rice that doesn't have as much of that residue when you kind of when you boil it. And man, it is wonderful, wonderful stuff. I love it, man. I love it. When the folks over at Supreme Rice were telling me about they were proud of bringing this product on board, I am sold. Check it out. The parboil rice, Supreme Rice, and SupremeRice.com. Willie Fritz, baby. Give me Willie Fritz. 2 teams going in opposite directions here. They are excited to play. Arizona, not so much. They did get ambushed when they went to Lawrence, Kansas a couple of weeks ago. We had Kansas in that game. But Willie Fritz can coach, and he had to figure out his roster. And with taking over, it was a limited roster, to say the least, but he had no familiarity with it as well. He's got them playing better. Houston +2 at Arizona tonight. Kansas State at home in the Little Apple. And so they, again, I like this Kansas State team. Arizona State, hey, this is one of the real great. They've had some great coaching jobs this year. Kenny Dillingham's the youngest Division I coach out there in his second year at Tempe, 34 years old. Scatterboo may be playing in this one. That's okay. This is a different level. This is kind of like that Washington-Philadelphia game last week. Step up in class for Arizona State. The old and the new, Dillingham against Kleiman. With the Little Apple, it's a tough place to play. It's funny, though, these 2 quarterbacks remind me of each other because both are similar passing numbers and similar rushing numbers as well. So where's that? The streets of where in Oregon?
The mean streets of West Lynn, Oregon.
That's right, the mean streets of West Lynn, Oregon. But give me Bradley in this one, Avery. And so I'm taking K-State -7.5. Same thing with another Big 12 venue. That's tough to play. And now this team is in a more familiar road. The undefeated season, the brackets, are they going to the playoff? Man, and it started even before they started losing. And that's Iowa State. They should have lost to Central Florida at home, but they escaped to stay undefeated, and then they lost their very next 2. So I like Iowa State. Pressure's off. Back in their familiar territory here. Give me the Cyclones, where at Ames, we know that's a tough place to play. Give me the Cyclones -7.5 against, I'm forgetting who they're playing right now, Max. But anyway, they're not one of the stronger teams in the Big 12. Cyclones -7.5. Then we're going to go with Georgia -9.5. Lane Kiffin talked about his team kind of being in a desperate mode. No more room for error, and maybe contributed to their high intensity, high focus, their fired up play that they had against Georgia. Now Georgia's in their spot. They now have no room for error. They are left out of this week's projected brackets. Of course, they're kind of silly. They went out. They should be there. And then comes into Tennessee, whether it's Nico or not. I don't think he's going to play, but he has only thrown for 200 yards in one of his SEC games. That was against Kentucky earlier this year. He didn't play well in the toughest road start that he had. Now it's against Fayetteville, where they lost. And that score should have been worse than it actually was. Give me the Dogs here in a big crowd, big atmosphere, -9.5 against Tennessee. And then a game that I had right around 6.5, 7. Mac Brown kind of was at 3-4. They kind of the fan base is ready to move on with Mac Brown. It's been a little bit better than maybe we thought, but it's gotten stale. But then he wins his last couple of games, and now he's at 5-4. But Wake Forest here, 11 points aplenty in this one. They should go up, and I think that would have kept this line a little bit over double digits. Also, is that Wake lost a tough beat against California last Friday night. A touchdown with just over a minute to go to cover the spread. Wake Forest getting a generous number. They should score +11 there. So Houston +2. Kansas State -7.5. Iowa State against Cincinnati. Apologize about forgetting the opponent there. Cincinnati lost at home to West Virginia last week. Iowa State -7.5. Georgia -9.5. And then Wake Forest +11. I am exactly 500 for the season in college plays. 27-27-1 this year.
Charlie mentioned this stat a couple weeks ago, I think, about Wake Forest. Against FBS competition, they've won every game on the road and lost every game at home. So they're on the road at North Carolina this week. Maybe that's a good thing for them.
Who is that now?
Wake Forest. They've won 3 games in FBS play. They beat NCA&T at home, but their 3 FBS wins all came on the road, and they lost all their home games.
Our server is down today, so Paul Stone's pick, we don't have it for him. Tell him where to find Paul Stone's picks, Matt.
Yeah, check out the Bet Rivers Network. Sports Better's Paradise is the YouTube channel, and also on anywhere you get your podcast, Sports Better's Paradise. Subscribe on YouTube. Great content as always, and they'll if you subscribe, put the notifications on. That way you get every video in your inbox on your phone ready to go.
Now, Otterlocks was a good night last night again. So we had the now we went with Washington plus the 4.5, but did hit the under 2.5 Washington total TDs. We had the halftime full time that paid at the time plus 650. Plus 650. Washington to lead at half, but Philly to win the game. So some of those favorites can kind of come in a little bit less than focused and then wake up over the course of the game. It's exactly what happened last night. So find Paul Stone's picks again at Sports Better's Paradise, our YouTube channel. I was talking about Avery Johnson for Kansas State and the quarterback Sam Leavitt for Arizona State. Look how close these things, because Johnson certainly has a lot of mobility. I mean, he's got some legs. They're trying to develop his passing, but Johnson averages 7.5 an attempt. Leavitt 7.9. Johnson exactly 10 more TDs and interceptions, 17-7. Sam Leavitt 10 more TDs and interceptions, 14-4. Rushing the ball, both have 4 rushing touchdowns. Johnson has 391 total yards. Leavitt 306. Pretty interesting tale of the tape. Speaking of the tale of the tape, again, it will be at the Beau Rivage this weekend for Football Sunday. They no bets on the Tyson Paul fight tonight in Louisiana. It's one of those different little sanctions, state by state. I think it said Troy said about a third of the states are offering it. Beau Rivage is accepting your bets. We told you about that. Carl Johnson sent me the betting sheet for tonight's boxing match. We'll come back, give you Charlie's picks. He has been our leader for this season. He's still over 500. We'll have his picks when we return. Wrap things up. It's Football Friday, Lock of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris at Edward Jones Investments from Rufino's on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Charles Hannegriff's 5-pack of picks. Brought to you by Supreme Rice. Make sure you use Louisiana rice, grown by Louisiana farmers since 1936. Available at most local grocery stores. Supreme Rice.
All right, Charlie's 30-24-1 on the season. He's got a 3-game lead on us, and I can't even count how many games lead he's got on you, Max. But anyway, Houston +2. All three of us, boy, the three Musketeers, huh? All have Houston. It's now +2. I am the only one that doesn't have this pick. Charlie's got Kansas +2.5. Max has Kansas +2.5. Wes Reynolds on Wednesday gave us Kansas when they were +3. Matt Humans gave us Kansas yesterday when he was on. Bruce Marshall just gave us Kansas +2.5. Oh, interesting. West Virginia +1. I like Baylor a little bit there. Charlie's got the Mountaineers at home. They did go to Cincinnati and win a road game there. It's a tough read on this West Virginia team this year. Is Dave Aranda? It's going to be close. Going to be interesting. What's their record right now, Max, for the Baylor Bears? Dave Aranda, a little bit of a warm seat there. I just wonder. It's that doggone
5-4.
I think that damn Hail Mary going to come back to bite them. But they have recovered. They have played better. I like Baylor. Charlie's got West Virginia. South Carolina -14. Missouri is a mess with their quarterback situation. They can't do anything on offense. They stole that game last week with a miraculous throw and catch to the right side of the end zone. And then, but a little scoop and score as well. Now, Oklahoma just got a scoop and score before that to take a lead. But a wild game. Big 8, Big 12 teams there. Now in the SEC. South Carolina is good. They're at home. -14 is a lot of points. Charlie and I on the same page here. Georgia -9.5. So Charlie's 5 picks. Houston +2. Kansas +2.5. West Virginia +1. South Carolina -14. And Georgia -9.5 points. So the 80% club was Penn State and Sam Houston State. Penn State, and keep in mind, Wrigley Field, that's, I thought I was listening to T-Bob and Jacob earlier today, said it was the hottest ticket in college football, the highest ticket in the secondary market, Wrigley Field. So I wonder if they have to flip sides again. I think they can only have room for one end zone, so it's kind of a messed up deal. So, but anyway, hey, don't forget, Football Friday originates from Biloxi at the Beau Rivage. They are taking your bets for the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight tonight in Mississippi. For Jordan Kitchens back in the studio, stay tuned. Yell practice up next with Hunt Palmer. This is Live of the Week Friday, presented by Tex Morris and Edward Jones Investments on 104.5
Live at lunch.
ESPN Baton